Imagine this. A man walks into a room full of people, and without saying a word, his focus locks onto one woman. Something shifts, not in her, but in him. His posture, his voice, his decisions all begin to orbit around her presence. He's not obsessed, he's not infatuated, he's anchored. And when that happens, he doesn't just show affection, he starts rewriting the way he exists, because when a man is truly crazy about a woman, he doesn't just fall, when a man is truly drawn to a woman, emotionally invested on a deep level, one of the first things to shift is his attunement to her emotional state. It's not simply that he notices her moods more, it's that her emotions begin to register within him, almost like a weather pattern. He must forecast, prepare for, and navigate this is not always a conscious process, and in many cases it unfolds subtly, but the impact is profound. His attention becomes directed, not just in the broad strokes of affection or care, but in the fine details of emotional nuance. Her sighs, her tone, her pauses. He becomes increasingly sensitive to them. He listens between the lines. He watches how she reacts to certain conversations, how she responds to certain people, how her face shifts when she's overwhelmed or exhausted. He begins to process her emotions as data, not coldly, but with the precision of someone deeply invested in understanding her internal world. This level of awareness is not universal. Men do not walk around this attuned to every person they meet. It's a recalibration, a narrowing of focus. And that focus is you. He becomes, in essence, emotionally porous. Her joy becomes his lift. Her sadness weighs on him. When she's frustrated, he does. Just here, he feels compelled to respond. And not always by fixing the problem, sometimes just by being there, saying less, observing more. Because the truly captivated man begins to understand, often instinctively, that presence is power, that emotional resonance doesn't come from trying to control or correct her feelings, but from witnessing them, from signaling that he sees them, and they matter to him. This kind of emotional attunement has roots in both evolutionary biology and developmental psychology. From an evolutionary standpoint, early human survival depended heavily on successful bonding and alliance building. A man who could sense the shifts in his partner's emotional state would be better equipped to navigate social dynamics, protect his mate, and maintain relational harmony within the tribe. That attunement was a survival mechanism, but in modern relationships, it functions differently. It becomes a signal of depth of care, of real psychological investment. It's the emotional equivalent of showing up every day, every hour, even when no words are exchanged. His awareness becomes a kind of emotional stewardship. What's particularly striking is how many men don't even realize they're doing it. They just know that her sadness makes their day feel off, that her happiness makes them feel inexplicably optimistic. They track her emotion rhythms like a sailor reading tides. It's not performative, and it's not always romantic in the traditional sense. It can show up as random check-ins, as sudden silences when he senses she needs space, or as unspoken shifts in energy. When he enters a room and senses something is wrong, he may not always ask the right question, but the fact that he's aware something's different, that's the key. That's where it starts. It's not just about responding to pain. It's also about amplifying joy. When she's excited, when she's laughing freely, when she's in flow, he leans in, he mirrors it, not in an exaggerated or forced way, but naturally, because your joy becomes something he wants to preserve. That emotional feedback loop becomes foundational. It creates a shared rhythm, a psychological intimacy that doesn't need constant articulation. He might not be able to verbalize what he's doing, but his nervous system has adapted. His priorities have shifted. He's watching, listening, adjusting, all without being told to. And it's not because he's trying to be perfect. It's because in his mind, you already are. When a man is deeply interested in a woman, when he's not just passing time, but emotionally anchored, something interesting happens beneath the surface. He starts revealing parts of himself that most people never get access to. This doesn't happen all at once, and it's not loud or dramatic. In fact, it's often subtle, deliberate and surprising, he begins to expose small cracks in the armor, not because he's weak, but because he wants her to see what's underneath the strength. He begins to show vulnerability, but he does it strategically. It's not manipulation. It's calculated intimacy. It's the kind of move that carries risk, because he knows that to be seen clearly is to be judged. And to be judged is to be potentially rejected, and yet he does it anyway. This kind of vulnerability isn't performative. He's not throwing his pain around hoping someone picks it up and soothes it. Rather, it's selective disclosure. He might talk about a moment in his past that changed him, something that was hard or humbling or embarrassing. He might admit to feeling lost at one point in his life or share a struggle he hasn't mastered yet. These aren't stories he tells everyone. They're not front page material in his daily social life. But he offers them to her because in his mind, that act of exposure creates a bridge between them. He's saying, without directly saying it, I trust you with this. That's no small thing. Men are taught implicitly or explicitly to associate value with control, stability, and strength. So when a man allows himself to be vulnerable with a woman he cares about, he's not just telling a story, he's taking a psychological risk. He's suspending the performance of invincibility long enough to let her see something real, and he's watching closely to see what she does with it. Does she listen without judgment? Does she soften toward him? Does she respect it or weaponize it? Her response tells him if she's emotionally safe, if she's worth further investment, if this relationship can be more than surface level. And if she responds well, it reinforces a powerful dynamic. He can be strong and still have softness. He can lead and still feel he can offer support. And don't need it sometimes. There's a difference between being vulnerable and being messy. A man who is deeply interested doesn't make his emotions someone else's responsibility. He's not offloading his baggage or expecting her to solve his problems. He's inviting her into the deeper layers of who he is. Vulnerability here is about connection, not collapse. It's a conscious decision to step away from the facade and allow a moment of honesty. And in those moments, the bond between two people either deepens or dissolves. What's important to understand is that this kind of openness doesn't always come easily for many men. It may take time to even identify what parts of themselves they feel safe sharing. They may not have the language for it. So sometimes it comes out awkwardly through quiet admissions, stories wrapped in humor, or offhand comments that carry far more weight than they appear to. But make no mistake, if he's letting you into those inner chambers, it's because he sees you as someone worth being. He's not trying to impress anymore, he's trying to connect. And connection for him starts with truth. Not the polished, curated truth people use to gain approval, but the kind that's raw, imperfect, and rarely shown. When he shares it, he's not just being honest, he's testing depth. He's asking without asking, can you see me, really see me, and still stay? When a man is genuinely captivated by a woman, there's a shift in how he physically and psychologically positions himself in her presence. This isn't always conscious, it's often instinctual, deeply rooted in biology and social behavior, but it plays out in consistent patterns. One of the clearest expressions of this shift is a form of subtle, almost primal territoriality. It doesn't manifest in loud declarations or overt claims of ownership, but in small, repeated behaviors that signal one thing: I'm here, and I want you to notice. It's not possessiveness in a toxic sense. It's not about control. It's about presence. It's the quiet assertion of emotional investment, of psychological space being created around her. And for her, he may begin to place himself physically closer to her in social situations, at a gathering. He might consistently position himself where he has a clear view of her or make sure she's within arm's reach. It's not always intentional, but it's repeated. His body language shifts. Shoulders squared, chest suddenly expanded, voice slightly more grounded when he speaks in her vicinity. He might touch the small of her back when they're walking through a crowd, or rest a hand on her shoulder when laughing at a joke. These gestures are small but meaningful. They serve both as reassurance to her and as quiet signals to others. They communicate familiarity, attention, and connection. There's also an energy to it. A man who's deeply into a woman begins to develop a kind of alertness when others interact with her, especially other men. He may not say anything, and doesn't need to, But you'll notice subtle tension in his posture, a momentary silence, or even a well-timed joke or interjection to reestablish presence. This isn't jealousy in its extreme form, but rather a calibrated protective instinct. He senses her value not just in how she looks, but in who she is. And he instinctively wants to protect that bond from disruption. It's not about limiting her freedom. It's about signaling his investment. It's saying, I see you, I value you, I'm here. This kind of territoriality also emerges in how he talks about her to others. He may mention her more frequently in conversation. He might casually bring her up in discussions, anchoring her presence into the social narrative around him. It's not just pride, although there may be pride in it. It's about integration. She's no longer an external factor in his life. She's becoming part of how he thinks, how he moves, how he makes decisions, even if it's subtle. You can hear it in his phrasing. He shifts from I to we more naturally. He factors her into future plans, even abstract ones. She begins to occupy space in his mental map of the world. There's also a kind of soft defense mechanism in play. He may gently tease or challenge her in public, not to undermine, but to playfully assert familiarity. It's a dynamic way of establishing connection in a social setting. A shared language that others aren't fully part of. It creates intimacy within public interaction. At the same time, he watches how others treat her. If someone disrespects her, talks over her, or dismisses her, his response is swift, even if subtle. He may speak up, redirect the conversation, or simply change the tone. He becomes attuned to her social safety, not out of dominance, but care. All of this comes down to presence, not just physical presence, but emotional presence. A man who is truly invested doesn't disappear into the background. He's not just around, he shows up. His behavior says, I'm here for you, I'm aware of you, and I'm tuned in. He doesn't have to compete for attention because he's already placed himself in orbit around you. And in doing so, he creates a psychological space that says, you matter here, this space is different because you're in it. When a man is truly captivated by a woman, one of the more fascinating and often unconscious behaviors he begins to display is identity mirroring. This isn't mimicry in the shallow sense of simply copying another person's actions or speech patterns. It's far more intimate than that. It's a deep internalized alignment with her world, her rhythms, her language, her habits. It's as if being around her starts to rewire the way he moves through life, not because he's trying to manipulate her or become someone he's not, but because his brain and body begin to naturally calibrate to the person who's now taken emotional priority. This mirroring often begins with language. A man who's drawn in by a woman will begin to pick up on the phrases she uses regularly without realizing it. He might start inserting those words or expressions into his own vocabulary. He might laugh at the same kinds of jokes, repeat her sayings in different contexts, or mirror her tone when he's speaking with her. These subtle linguistic shifts aren't just flattery, they're bonding mechanisms. The brain, especially in states of emotional closeness, tends to mimic the speech patterns of those we feel connected to. It's a neurological shorthand for we belong to the same tribe. It doesn't stop at language. It extends to routines and preferences. He may start listening to the music she loves, even if it wasn't his taste before. He might suggest watching a film in a genre she enjoys, pick up a book she mentioned in passing, or suddenly develop an interest in the kind of food she likes. He'll begin to notice details about how she organizes her space, how she structures her day, how she approaches work or rest, and instead of dismissing those details, he adapts. Sometimes it's conscious, especially in the early stages when he's eager to find common ground, but as the emotional connection deepens, it becomes more instinctual. Her preferences begin to merge with his own. This isn't about losing identity, it's about expanding it. A man who is emotionally invested isn't erasing himself to become her clone. He's building a shared language of habits and values. He doesn't abandon who he is, rather he incorporates her into who he's becoming. This is how emotional intimacy evolves, through the fusion of previously separate lives. The lines begin to blur in a way that feels organic, not forced. His playlist changes, his schedule shifts, even the way he handles stress or celebrates small wins may begin to reflect her influence. It's the psychological equivalent of resonance, two frequencies tuning to the same pitch over time. People sometimes think of mirroring as a conscious strategy used to gain favor or create superficial rapport, but what's happening here is different. It's deeper and often unspoken. When he starts to mirror her, he's not doing it to impress. He's doing it because his internal world has shifted. He values her presence. Her behaviors begin to feel like part of the natural order of his own life. Her influence isn't something he resists. It's something he welcomes. Even in conversation, this mirroring effect shows up. He starts to reflect her emotional tone. When she's excited, he matches her enthusiasm. When she's thoughtful, he grows quieter. He tracks her expressions, listens with more focus, responds with more emotional alignment. He's not just hearing her, he's synchronizing with her over time. This creates a rhythm between them that feels uniquely their own. It's not just compatibility, it's co-creation. They begin to build a shared space, not just physically, but psychologically. And in that space, his identity begins to shift, not away from himself, but towards something more interconnected, something that holds both of them. When a man is deeply interested in a woman, he begins to engage in what might appear to be an unusual form of time investment. He pays attention to the small things. This is not the same as grand gestures or impressive declarations. Those are easy to recognize and often require less emotional effort. What sets this apart is his heightened sensitivity to the seemingly insignificant details of her world and the way he integrates those into his own action. When a man is captivated, he listens differently. He remembers not because he has to, but because something in him simply doesn't want to forget. A passing comment she makes about her favorite childhood snack, a mention of a stressful meeting coming up, the offhand way she talks about a song that makes her feel safe. He tucks these details away like puzzle pieces, assembling a quiet map of her inner world. He uses this map in ways that are subtle, but he texts her good luck on the morning of that meeting without her needing to remind him. Maybe the next time they're at the store, he picks up that snack she mentioned without fanfare. Maybe he sends her a playlist with the song she talked about buried in the middle as a kind of emotional breadcrumb. These aren't random acts of kindness. They are tailored responses to her. Each action is a kind of emotional echo, a signal that he sees her not as a general presence in his life, but as someone specific, someone unforgettable. This kind of attentiveness is not accidental. It takes cognitive effort, emotional bandwidth, and time. And when a man is devoting all three in this way, it is rarely for casual reasons. The male psyche is often wired toward efficiency, toward conserving energy and minimizing risk. So when he chooses to spend that energy noticing the way her eyes light up when she talks about something she loves or the way she gets quiet when something's wrong, he's making an investment. He's stepping out of autopilot and into conscious observation. That shift says everything. There's also a certain humility in this kind of effort. It requires him to listen, not with the intent to reply or fix, but with the intent to understand. That's a different posture entirely. It's not about proving how much he knows. It's about proving how much he cares. He listens when she doesn't think he's listening. He remembers things she doesn't even remember telling him. And what's more, he doesn't flaunt this attentiveness as a badge. It's quiet. Sometimes she won't even notice it at first, but the effects are cumulative over time. It builds a kind of emotional safety for her. The sense that she is not invisible, that someone is paying attention even when she's not trying to be seen. This attentiveness also reveals itself in how he adjusts himself around her. He may notice that she tends to get overwhelmed in noisy environments, so he'll choose quieter settings. He may realize she's more reflective in the evening, so he saves deeper conversations for that time. These are not demands she makes. They're adaptations he offers, and he offers them because he's not just watching her, he's learning her, not to change her, but to meet her where she is. It's easy to bring flowers. It's harder to remember that she prefers sunflowers over roses because they remind her of home. It's easy to say, I'm thinking of you. It's harder and more meaningful to show it through thoughtful, unprompted action. That kind of effort doesn't come from obligation. It comes from a place of reverence, of deep psychological presence. It says, you matter enough that I made room for you in my mind in the smallest corners in the background noise of my day. When a man is truly captivated by a woman, something very specific begins to take root in his mind. He starts imagining her in his future, not in vague romantic generalities, but in concrete, grounded ways. He doesn't just think about being with her, he starts integrating her into the architecture of his long-term life. It's not simply about feeling affection in the moment, it's about building a mental model of the life he wants to create and placing her right at the center of it. He begins to frame decisions, plans, even his ambitions through a new lens. Will she be part of this? Would she like this? Does this fit who we are together? This shift doesn't necessarily come with dramatic announcements or bold declarations of love. Often, it's subtle. He might casually mention a vacation he wants to take next year and say, "You'd love it there." He might bring up something about the kind of house he wants to live in someday and then immediately reference how her style would fit in that space. He starts talking in terms of we instead of I, not as a performance. But because his thinking has already begun to reorganize around the idea of partnership, this is a powerful sign. Because for many men, especially those who have been fiercely independent or hesitant about long-term emotional vulnerability, this type of mental restructuring signals real psychological commitment. It's also practical. He starts to consider how her values align with his goals, how her personality might complement the life he envisions, how she might fit in with his family, his friends, his rhythm. He begins to filter decisions through the impact they may have on the relationship. Even in moments when he's alone, when he's strategizing about his career or personal development, he finds her presence there, shaping the questions he asks himself, coloring the possibilities he considers. This isn't fantasy. It's foundation laying. It's the quiet early drafting of a shared future. This mental shift often brings with it a deeper sense of responsibility. He becomes more aware of how his choices reflect on the kind of man he wants to be, not just for himself, but for her. He may start focusing more on growth, discipline, or stability, not out of insecurity, but because he's beginning to internalize what it means to truly provide, not just in material terms, but emotionally and psychologically. The idea of partnership becomes a motivator, a call to rise into a version of himself that's not only capable of sustaining love, but worthy of it. What's important to note is that many of these behaviors are not always communicated explicitly. He might not sit her down and explain all the ways he's imagining life with her. Instead, it shows up in passing comments and the way he includes her in logistical conversations and how he talks about 5-year plans as though she's naturally part of them. He might start talking about kids, not necessarily as a proposal, but in a way that invites her perspective. It'll reference moments far off in the future, a concert a year from now, an idea for a business, a dream trip, and attach her name to him like it's the most obvious thing in the world. This isn't impulsive fantasy. It's slow, layered integration. He's not trying to lock her in. He's trying to fit her in to see if the life he wants becomes more vivid, more meaningful with her inside it. That internal trial run becomes the precursor to deeper commitment. And even before he says the words, before he defines the relationship or takes the next official step, he's already inviting her in first in his mind. And then gradually in his reality. So when a man is truly captivated by a woman, when she's not just someone he desires, but someone who changes how he sees the world, it doesn't explode in spectacle, it unfolds in nuance. He starts letting down his guard, not to appear weak, but to show depth. He moves closer, not just physically, but emotionally. Quietly carving out a space around her, and within himself, he mirrors her essence, absorbing her habits and language until they begin to shape his own. He listens with precision, remembers the forgotten details, and turns them into moments of meaning. And perhaps most telling of all, he begins to imagine her not as a visitor, but as a fixture in the architecture of his future. These are not tricks in the manipulative sense. They are psychological cues, subconscious declarations of value and intention. When a man behaves this way, it's because something in him has already decided, this woman matters. And in a world where attention is currency and commitment is rare, that kind of consistent intentional behavior speaks louder than any declaration ever could. Have you ever noticed that the men who chase the hardest often aren't running after the women who adore them, but the ones who barely look their way? Strange, right? Or is it? What if everything you believed about attraction was wrong? What if being nice, available, and eager was exactly what kills his obsession before it even starts? Most women are taught that the key to winning a man's heart is giving more, loving harder, texting faster. But here's the hard truth. In the psychology of attraction, the ones who pull back are the ones who pull men in. The problem is, no one explains why this happens clearly. And if you don't understand the hidden forces driving his behavior, you might be accidentally pushing away the very man you want to keep. In a world obsessed with instant gratification, how do you become the woman he can't stop thinking about? The dimension of this problem goes deeper than just romance. It's about brain chemistry, ancient instincts, emotional addiction, and validation loops. It's about understanding how scarcity, uncertainty, and stoicism trigger pursuit far more powerfully than words or actions ever could. Today, I'm giving you the blueprint. We're not just talking about shallow tricks or manipulative games. We're diving into the real psychological principles that govern human desire. If you master these, you don't just change how men respond to you, you change how you move through the entire dating world with calm confidence and unshakable power. These insights can transform your approach completely. And reason number 3 could flip everything you thought you knew upside down. So buckle up, because what you're about to discover isn't random advice. It's rooted in hardwired human nature and timeless stoicism. Once you see the truth, you can't unsee it. Stay with me until the end, because what we uncover in the final reason will leave you viewing every text, every date, every interaction through a whole new lens, ready to awaken the version of you that naturally draws in the right man without losing yourself. Welcome to Love Stoic, where attraction meets authenticity. Let's begin. 1. The hunter's instinct. How distance sparks pursuit. From the dawn of time, men were not built to wait passively for what they desired. They were designed to hunt, to pursue, to conquer. The evolutionary roots run deeper than society dares to acknowledge today. Yet they are etched into the fabric of male psychology. Men are wired biologically and psychologically to chase after what seems just beyond their grasp. When you understand this at a core level, everything about modern dating suddenly makes sense. If a woman is immediately and excessively available, he registers no challenge, no mission, no reason for pursuit. But when a woman stands just slightly out of reach, not rejecting but not throwing herself into his arms either, it triggers a cascade of psychological and chemical responses that make the chase feel absolutely irresistible. The Stoic mind knows what is easily gained is lightly esteemed. Do you feel the pull already? Imagine a world where every achievement was simply handed to you without effort. Would you cherish it? No, you would forget it. Men are no different when it comes to relationships. Their brain, specifically the reward circuitry dominated by dopamine, craves the sensation of pursuit. Dopamine is not released when a man has a woman. It is released in overwhelming amounts when he is pursuing her, when he is uncertain, when she feels just barely attainable. This chemical hit feels so good, so rewarding, that he keeps chasing again and again, trapped in a loop without even understanding why. If you have ever wondered why men who seem calm and composed in other areas of life turn almost obsessive when a woman shows just enough distance, now you know. It's not a flaw. It is design. But most women violate this design every single day without knowing it. They overgive, they overexplain, they overpursue, they drown the man in certainty, in emotional accessibility before he has earned his place there. And then they are left wondering why the spark died, why he suddenly pulled away. It wasn't him losing interest, it was biology completing its course. No chase, no chemistry, no distance, no devotion. Ask yourself, when was the last time you truly cherished something that came with no cost, no effort, no emotional investment? Men are not shallow for operating this way. It is stoicism that teaches us value as a function of effort. The more we must strive for something, the more we naturally prize it. And in a world dominated by instant gratification, by the endless swipe culture of dating apps, the woman who stands firm in her own orbit, unmoved by the frantic energy of pursuit, becomes a rare and magnetic force. She is not cold. She is not manipulative. She is simply centered. She is sovereign. And because of that, she activates the primal hunter within him. He feels alive chasing her. He feels more himself. He feels purpose, challenge, growth. This is not about cruelty. It is not about games. It is about respecting the natural order of masculine energy. Men do not long for that which they already possess without effort. They long for the prize that tests them, that stretches them, that demands something deeper from them. Love Stoic teaches this essential truth. If you want a man to feel true, lasting devotion toward you, you must understand and honor his deep-rooted instinct to chase. And chasing cannot exist without distance. Distance is not the enemy of connection. It is the catalyst. A Stoic woman does not shrink herself to make a man comfortable. She does not hasten to fill every silence or fix every doubt. She understands that in stillness mystery is born, and in mystery the seeds of desire are planted. Every interaction you have with a man either activates this dynamic or destroys it. When you reply instantly to every message, when you always say yes to every request, when you are available every second he reaches for you, you smother the very flame you wish to keep burning. You rob him of the experience of pursuit. And in doing so, you rob yourself of the experience of being truly cherished. Pause and reflect. Are you operating from fear or from faith? Fear makes you cling. Faith allows you to trust the natural rhythms of attraction. Faith is the essence of Stoicism. Faith that if you hold your value, the right man will rise to meet you. The wrong man will fall away and you will be grateful. Imagine being the woman who inspires pursuit effortlessly, without pretending, without posturing. This is the path of authentic power. It is not about pretending you are too busy. It is about actually being too engaged with your own meaningful life to be at his beck and call. This creates natural distance. This activates the chase instinct, not by artifice but by living richly and fully. Love Stoic is about cultivating this reality, not faking it, because a man can smell false distance a mile away. He knows when a woman is deliberately ignoring him to get a reaction that triggers resentment, not attraction. But when you are genuinely focused on your own growth, your passions, your friendships, your goals, your essence emits scarcity naturally. You are not a commodity. You are a rare and precious opportunity. He must rise to claim you or he loses access. The more challenging the pursuit, the more invested he becomes. This is why a Stoic woman does not fear losing a man who fails to pursue. She understands that his lack of effort reveals his lack of suitability, not her lack of worth. His behavior sorts itself out, saving her time, energy, and emotional wear. Stoicism teaches detachment from outcomes. You are not attached to whether he stays or goes. You are attached only to maintaining your own standard. Ironically, this detachment only makes you more magnetic. The less you seem to need his attention, the more he feels the pull to earn it. Power exists not in chasing, but in being worth chasing. Think about the most desirable people throughout history. Kings, queens, celebrities, innovators. Did they beg for attention? Or did they move with such conviction, such devotion to their own path that others naturally flocked to them? The same principle applies to your dating life. The woman who walks in her own direction forces men to step up if they want to walk beside her. She does not turn around to pull them along. She does not slow her pace to make it easier. She moves with steady, unwavering certainty. And in doing so, she separates the strong from the weak, the ready from the unready. She becomes the challenge he cannot resist. In a society where too many people lower their standards to gain temporary affection, choosing to stand firm feels revolutionary. It feels stoic, and in that choice you awaken something ancient, something elemental, something unstoppable within the masculine soul. You are not just another woman on an app. You are not just another option in a sea of faces. Yes. You become the quest, the challenge, the victory worth fighting for. Every fiber of his being leans toward you, drawn by the very distance you courageously maintain. This is not manipulation. This is alignment with the deepest structures of human nature. To honor the hunter's instinct is to honor the man himself. It is to offer him the opportunity to rise, to strive, to conquer, and to win. Not because you were easy, but because he became worthy. Love Stoic is not about tricks. It is about truth. The truth that a woman who knows her value, who lives her value, creates a gravitational pull that no man of worth can ignore. Will you dare to embody this? Will you trust in the natural power of distance, scarcity, and self-possession? Or will you continue pouring energy into chasing, explaining, fixing, convincing? The choice is yours. But understand this. Once you taste the effortless magnetism of honoring the hunter's instinct, you will never again settle for being the one who chases. You will never again doubt your worth. You will walk through the world with a quiet, powerful confidence that draws everything you desire toward you.
not through force but through force of being. This is the way of love stoic. This is the way of stoicism in love. And it all begins with one decision to stop reaching and start standing. Stand still. Let him come to you. Let the chase begin. 2. Scarcity creates value. Why being rare makes you irresistible. Scarcity is one of the most powerful forces in human psychology, yet most people misunderstand it entirely when it comes to love and attraction. In a world drowning in noise, in easy access, in the infinite scrolling of faces and profiles, what stands out is not the loudest nor the most available, but the rarest. What is rare is valuable. This is not an idea. It is a law of human perception. Stoicism teaches us that what we value most is often what we can least easily attain. And the same rule applies with men and women. If a man can have your attention any time, if he can predict your every response, if you are always there when he reaches out, your attention loses its shine, its weight, its magic. But if your time, your affection, your emotional energy are scarce, measured, protected like precious treasures, then he will instinctively assign them a much higher value. Have you ever asked yourself why diamonds are valued more highly than stones, even though chemically they are not so different? It is because of their rarity, their difficulty to obtain, and the immense effort required to find and refine them. The same is true in the dynamics of desire. A woman who is emotionally abundant toward a man too early becomes like a stone he can pick up from the street. A woman who knows her worth, who is selective, who measures her energy carefully, becomes the diamond he must strive to earn. Love Stoic teaches that your scarcity is your power. It is not about pretending to be busy. It is about being genuinely busy, building a meaningful life. It is about having passions, dreams, goals, and friendships that fill your world with richness, so that no man becomes your sole source of validation or excitement. In Stoicism, we recognize that dependence on external validation weakens the soul. True strength comes from internal wholeness, from the knowledge that you are already complete. When you operate from this place, you naturally create scarcity without even trying. Your energy becomes rare, not because you withhold it in manipulation, but because you give it only where it is truly deserved. Men feel this immediately. They cannot explain it logically, but they feel it viscerally. The woman who is deeply rooted in herself, who is not constantly seeking attention, who is not chasing, texting, proving, explaining, becomes a beacon. She radiates an aura that says, "My time and heart are treasures, and only the worthy shall experience them." Think about it. How do you feel when you know something is abundant? When you can have it any time, you postpone, you delay, you take it for granted. Now think about how you react when something is limited, rare, scarce. You prioritize it, you focus, you value it. Men are no different. Scarcity activates urgency. It activates focused attention. It activates commitment. When a woman is always available, there is no urgency. When a woman is selective, there is an undercurrent of competition, of precious opportunity, of significance. He knows, perhaps not consciously, that if he does not step up, someone else might. This awareness triggers effort, and where effort is invested, value is created. Human beings do not value what costs them nothing. Effort creates emotional attachment. Emotional attachment deepens desire. Scarcity creates effort. It is a perfect, unbreakable cycle. The woman who embodies Stoicism understands this. She does not move out of fear of losing him. She moves from a deep faith in her own worth. She allows men to experience the natural consequences of their actions. She does not chase when a man withdraws. She does not seek reassurance when a man hesitates. She continues living. She continues thriving. In doing so, she shows him that her life does not orbit around his approval. And paradoxically, this makes him crave her presence even more. Love Stoic reminds us that being rare is not about games. It is about truth. You are rare when you live with purpose. You are rare when you protect your emotional energy. You are rare when you say no to what does not serve your highest good. Men notice this, even if they cannot articulate it. They feel the gravity of a woman who respects herself deeply. They respect her more. They invest more. They fall harder. Scarcity also sharpens perception. When he knows that your time is not guaranteed, he pays more attention when he has it. He listens more carefully. He acts more thoughtfully. The moments you do share become more vivid, more meaningful, more treasured. Contrast creates appreciation. Without scarcity, there is no contrast. Without contrast, there is no appreciation. Without appreciation, love fades into routine and boredom. Ask yourself, are you giving too much too soon? Are you offering your heart without asking if he has earned it? Are you rushing to be chosen instead of choosing yourself first? Stoicism demands that we examine our actions with clarity and courage. If you have been too available, too eager, too abundant, it is not too late. Every moment is a moment to realign, to step back, to rebuild your life as a masterpiece that no man can easily possess. You are the prize. Not because you declare it, not because you post about it, but because you live it. Every day, every choice, every interaction, you move as a woman who is deeply committed to her own excellence. A woman who does not fear scarcity because she knows that true abundance flows not from giving everything away, but from giving wisely, selectively, sacredly. Scarcity is sacred. Scarcity is a shield. Scarcity preserves your worth in a world desperate to cheapen it. When a man encounters a woman who is truly rare, he feels awe, he feels desire, he feels urgency, and if he is wise, he will rise. If he is not, he will fall away, and you will have lost nothing. Love Stoic reminds you, you are not here to be easily acquired. You are here to be cherished, to be pursued, to be valued, and that can only happen when you honor the law of scarcity. You are not the air, you are the mountain, and mountains are not moved by every passing breeze. They are climbed only by those willing to endure, to strive, to conquer, stand tall, stand rare, stand unshakable, and let those who dare come forth. If this truth resonates with you, if you feel the power of becoming truly rare, in a world of the common and the loud, I invite you right now, smash that like button, drop a comment with number 1 if you're loving this insight, and make sure you subscribe to this channel so you never miss a single breakthrough. Together with Love Stoic, we are building a generation of women who embody true stoicism and love, and it all begins with you. 3. Intermittent reinforcement, the hidden addiction trigger. Do this now. Intermittent reinforcement is perhaps the most dangerously addictive force operating within human psychology, yet most people remain utterly unaware of its power. It is the same principle that keeps gamblers glued to slot machines, that keeps social media users refreshing their notifications endlessly, and it is the very same principle that traps men in relentless pursuit of women who are selectively responsive. Understanding intermittent reinforcement is not just helpful, it is essential if you seek to master attraction at the highest level. In Stoicism, we seek to observe the world, not as we wish it to be, but as it truly is. And the truth is this: consistent rewards create boredom, but unpredictable rewards create obsession. When a man knows exactly what to expect from you, when every text is answered immediately, when every invitation is accepted without hesitation, he slips into a state of complacency. His brain predicts the outcome. There is no mystery, no tension, no emotional spike. But when your responses vary, when sometimes you reply quickly, and other times you do not, when sometimes you are warm and receptive, and other times you are busy living your life, his brain is thrust into uncertainty, and uncertainty is rocket fuel for attraction. Why? Because uncertainty creates anticipation, and anticipation heightens dopamine release, far beyond the levels triggered by predictable interactions. Every unexpected moment of attention becomes a jackpot win in his mind, a hit of euphoria that anchors him deeper and deeper into emotional addiction. Love Stoic teaches that understanding the mechanics of intermittent reinforcement is crucial, not to manipulate, but to navigate with wisdom and strength. You are not a slot machine. You are a living, breathing, evolving human being, with a life too rich to be predictably accessible to anyone at all times. It is through living fully, not through artificial games, that you naturally create the unpredictable patterns that ignite deep attraction. Think about it. When you never know exactly when a reward will come, you invest more energy trying to get it. The unpredictability keeps you hooked. Casinos understand this perfectly. They do not pay you every time you pull the lever. They pay you randomly, inconsistently, because they know that is what will keep you chasing indefinitely. This same principle operates often unconsciously in the realm of love and dating. A woman who is always available offers no emotional gambling, no risk, no potential jackpot feeling. A woman who is occasionally available, whose affection feels earned rather than given automatically, creates a dynamic that men find absolutely intoxicating. They think about her constantly. They wonder when the next hit of attention will come. They strategize, fantasize, and fixate all without realizing they have fallen into a psychological trap of their own making. Stoicism reminds us that emotions are powerful, but must be understood and managed with clarity. When you master the principle of intermittent reinforcement, you do not weaponize your attention, you refine it. You offer genuine affection when it feels right for you, not when it is demanded or expected. You respond when you authentically desire to connect, not out of fear or obligation. In doing so, you maintain your own internal peace, while creating an irresistible magnetic pull around you. Men do not fall in love with women who chase them. They fall in love with the women they have to earn, the women whose attention feels meaningful because it is not guaranteed. If you look closely at the most unforgettable relationships in your life, you will find that intermittent reinforcement played a key role. The highs felt higher because they were not predictable. The moments of connection felt precious because they were not constant. Without scarcity, there is no value. Without unpredictability, there is no obsession. Love Stoic calls you to embody this wisdom in a grounded, authentic way. It is not about faking unavailability. It is about being so engaged with your own passions, your own journey, your own fulfillment, that no one person, no one interaction consumes your emotional bandwidth completely. You are a whole universe unto yourself, and access to your world must be earned. When you live this way, you create a natural pattern of intermittent reinforcement, without calculation or manipulation. Some days you are immersed in your work, your creativity, your family, your self-care. Other days you have space and time to offer. This natural variability is what fuels desire. Men crave the women whose lives are full, not the ones waiting by the phone. A Stoic woman does not fear his frustration. When she is unavailable, she welcomes it. She knows that slight frustration sharpens his hunger, that a little uncertainty fans the flames of passion far more effectively than constant reassurance ever could. She trusts in the rhythm of life, in the timing of real connection, rather than forcing artificial consistency to soothe insecurity. Imagine being the woman who inspires him to check his phone with pounding heartbeats, hoping to see your name. Imagine being the woman who haunts his mind during silent moments, who lives in the back of his consciousness, because your attention is a prize he never knows exactly when he will receive. This is not manipulation. This is nature. Men are hunters by design. Predictability kills the hunt. Intermittent reinforcement sustains it. In Stoicism, we learn that patience and restraint are virtues, not weaknesses. By holding back a little, by pacing yourself, by not giving everything at once, you create a space where longing can grow. Longing is the soil from which true devotion springs. Without longing, love remains shallow, transactional, easily replaced. With longing, love becomes rooted, transformative, unforgettable. The greatest mistake women make is offering themselves too fully, too soon, out of fear of losing the man. Ironically, this fear creates the very loss they sought to prevent. The man grows bored, he withdraws, he seeks new challenges elsewhere. But when you trust in the slow unfolding of connection, when you allow scarcity and unpredictability to season your interactions, you become the challenge he cannot forget. Love Stoic emphasizes mastery over urgency. Urgency belongs to those who fear loss. Mastery belongs to those who trust in their own enduring worth. Every time you hesitate before replying, every time you prioritize your own needs before answering a call, every time you choose your life over immediate availability, you reinforce your value in his mind. His brain learns that your attention must be earned, that your love is a privilege, not a given, and he will act accordingly if he is worthy. And if he is not, he will drift away, freeing you for something greater. Intermittent reinforcement, when understood and embraced with Stoic wisdom, does not create chaos. It creates clarity. It separates the strong from the weak. It reveals true desire from convenience. It protects your heart while inviting deeper, more passionate connection. Consider this. The greatest love stories, the ones that echo through history, are not tales of instant, easy acquisition. They are sagas of pursuit, of patience, of longing. Scarcity and uncertainty, with the fabric of those stories, made them burn brighter and last longer. You are writing your own story every day. Will you make it a tale worth remembering, or will you give away your pages too cheaply? Remember, unpredictability does not mean cruelty. It means respecting your own needs and timing. It means giving attention from fullness, not from emptiness. It means offering love as a gift, not a transaction. In this way you remain sovereign, self-possessed, radiant. In this way you naturally inspire obsession, without lowering your standards or betraying your authenticity. Stoicism teaches us to act according to our highest values, not our fleeting fears. When you embody intermittent reinforcement with grace, you step into a realm of attraction few ever reach. You become unforgettable. You become the woman who lingers in his mind long after the conversation ends, who occupies a space in his heart that no easy conquest ever could. Men do not consciously know why they are addicted to women like this. They just know they cannot stay away. They cannot forget. They cannot replace. This is the hidden power of intermittent reinforcement. And when you live it not as a tactic but as a truth, you command a level of respect, devotion, and desire that changes the game entirely. This is the way of love stoic. This is the way of true stoicism in love. 4. Validation seeking. Why he needs your approval more than you think. Validation seeking is one of the most underestimated drivers behind male pursuit. Yet, it holds a far greater influence over attraction than most women realize. Beneath every chase, beneath every display of confidence or bravado, there often lies a deep and persistent hunger for approval, for recognition, for emotional confirmation that he is valuable, desirable, and significant. While the world often paints men as self-assured and unshakable, Stoicism teaches us to look beyond appearances and to observe reality as it truly is. And the reality is simple. Men, like all human beings, carry within them the need to feel chosen, to feel special, to feel validated. This need is often magnified when they encounter a woman who does not immediately offer that validation freely. When you meet a man and you withhold automatic approval, when you do not instantly shower him with attention, when you maintain your standards and your boundaries, you create a subtle yet powerful psychological tension within him. He begins to crave the validation you have not yet given. He wonders what he must do to earn it. He questions whether he is truly impressive enough to win your attention. And in that questioning, he invests. Investment is the foundation of emotional attachment. It is not the woman who gives everything easily, who wins the deepest loyalty. It is the woman who demands, not through words, but through her very being, that he rise to meet her standards. Love Stoic reminds us that true power in relationships comes not from force, but from the silent expectation that only the worthy shall receive. This silent expectation awakens something primal in a man. It challenges his ego. It stirs his pride. It ignites his competitive spirit, not against other men necessarily, but against his own self-doubt. He wants to be the man who is good enough. He wants to be the exception. He wants to be the one who earns what so few can. And this desire for validation becomes a powerful motivator for sustained pursuit. Have you ever noticed how a man can lose interest in a woman who is overly impressed by him too soon? It is because she offers no challenge, no opportunity for him to prove himself. His validation need is instantly satisfied, and with no further emotional investment required, his interest fades.
But the woman who seems impressed only by character, by consistency, by genuine effort, not surface-level charm or hollow gestures, becomes a prize he feels compelled to earn. Stoicism teaches that external validation should never govern our internal world. And this is true for both women and men. However, while we train ourselves to find our worth internally, we must also understand that many men unconsciously seek external validation through the women they pursue. They may not say it out loud, they may not even realize it consciously, but their behavior reveals it. They chase the woman who withholds easy approval because her recognition would mean more. It would affirm their value in a way no shallow admiration ever could. This is why so many successful, confident men still find themselves obsessed with women who remain slightly out of reach. It is not because these women are cruel. It is because these women require something deeper than surface-level interaction. They require proof of intention, proof of depth, proof of persistence. Love Stoic teaches that being selective with your approval is not cruelty. It is wisdom. You are not punishing a man by withholding instant validation. You are inviting him to step into a greater version of himself. You are offering him the chance to grow, to strive, to earn.
And in doing so, you are preserving your own value, maintaining your own dignity, and aligning with the natural rhythms of healthy attraction. Validation seeking also explains why inconsistent attention can feel so intoxicating to men. Each small acknowledgement, each smile, each text, each sign of warmth feels like a victory. It feels like a breakthrough. It feels like proof that he is winning a game he desperately wants to win. And the harder the victory feels, the sweeter it becomes. The Stoic woman understands this dynamic and navigates it with grace and integrity. She does not manipulate, she does not play games. She simply honors herself by not offering approval too cheaply. She offers it slowly, selectively, based on genuine observation of character and behavior. She allows a man to show her who he is over time, rather than rewarding him instantly for surface-level effort. In doing so, she filters out the unworthy effortlessly. The men who seek only easy validation quickly lose interest when it is not given. The men who are willing to invest, to strive, to persist, reveal themselves through their actions. And these are the men worth your time, your energy, your heart. Validation seeking also explains why men often pursue women who appear emotionally independent. When a man sees that a woman is not desperate for male approval, he senses that her validation would be rare and therefore more meaningful. She is not handing out compliments and attention like candy. She is discerning. She knows her worth. And because of this, her approval becomes something of extraordinary value. In Stoicism, we learn to hold ourselves to high standards and to demand the same from others. A woman who embodies these principles naturally commands respect, desire, and devotion. She does not need to beg for attention. She does not need to lower her standards to accommodate the insecurities of others. She remains steady, calm, and centered. Her validation, when finally given, carries the weight of truth, of authenticity, of real connection. Men know this instinctively. They know that winning the heart of a woman like this is not a casual achievement. It is a milestone. It is a reflection of their own growth, their own effort, their own worthiness. And this makes them value the connection far more deeply than they ever could value something that was handed to them without effort. Love Stoic encourages you to remember this. Your approval is a gift, not a given. Treat it as such, protect it, honor it, offer it only to those who have demonstrated through consistent action that they deserve it. In doing so, you not only protect yourself from heartbreak and disappointment, you also elevate the men around you. You challenge them to be better. You inspire them to strive. You awaken within them the desire to grow and to achieve, not just for you, but for themselves. This is the quiet, powerful influence of a woman who lives by Stoic principles. She does not demand change. She inspires it. She does not beg for validation. She offers it selectively, and in doing so transforms the entire dynamic of her relationships. She moves through the world with a calm, magnetic presence that draws the right men toward her and repels the wrong ones. She knows that true validation must come from within. But she also understands that selective external validation, when given authentically and wisely, can be a force for immense good. If you have ever wondered why certain women seem to effortlessly inspire deep devotion from men while others struggle to maintain even basic interest, the answer often lies here. It is not about looks. It is not about charm. It is about the power of selective validation. It is about creating an environment where a man's effort is required, where his emotional investment is necessary, where his achievement of your affection feels like a true victory. This dynamic transforms casual attraction into serious pursuit. It transforms interest into investment. It transforms fleeting attention into lasting connection. In the Stoic tradition, we are taught to be guardians of our hearts, to treat our inner selves as fortresses, not open fields. This does not mean we are cold or closed off. It means we are discerning, wise, and strong. It means we understand that what is given too easily is seldom valued. It means we choose to live in love with intention, with clarity, and with unshakable dignity. So the next time you find yourself tempted to offer validation prematurely, pause, breathe, remember your worth. Remember that your approval is a crown, and only those who have shown true nobility of character should be allowed to wear it. Love Stoic is about mastering these truths, living them, embodying them. When you do, you will find that the right men step up and the wrong ones fall away effortlessly. If you are loving these insights and feeling empowered to embody true stoicism in your relationships, go ahead and smash that like button. Comment number 1 below if you resonate with this truth, and make sure you subscribe to Love Stoic for more powerful transformative wisdom every week. 5. Emotional roller coasters feel like true love. Emotional roller coasters have an intoxicating grip on the human psyche, often leading us to confuse instability with intensity, chaos with passion, and unpredictable highs and lows with true love. In the Stoic philosophy, we are taught to question the illusions our emotions create, to see clearly where others are blinded by intensity. And nowhere is this more vital than in the arena of love and attraction. Emotional volatility mimics the biochemical effects of addiction. The rush of pleasure when things are good, the deep withdrawal when things are not, and the subsequent craving for the next high. This cycle is not love. It is biochemical captivity. Yet many men and women alike fall into its snare without ever recognizing the trap. When a man encounters a woman whose attention and affection are unpredictable, sometimes warm, sometimes cold, his brain chemistry responds with massive spikes and crashes in dopamine, oxytocin, and cortisol. These chemical surges create emotional memories far stronger than those formed through calm, consistent connection. The brain, seeking equilibrium, becomes obsessed with chasing the next high, the next reassuring moment, the next temporary bliss. In modern dating, where superficial interactions abound, the woman who inadvertently or intentionally creates emotional roller coasters becomes a powerful figure in a man's mind. Her unpredictability makes every small gesture feel monumental. Every moment of warmth feel like a rare and precious gift. This is the hidden architecture behind many so-called crazy relationships. The emotional chaos is not a sign of deep love, but of intermittent remarking, operating at full throttle, creating an unbreakable loop of hope, despair, craving, and fleeting satisfaction. Love Stoic challenges you to see through these illusions with clarity and strength. True love by Stoic standards is consistent, rooted, and calm. It is not the constant lurch between euphoria and devastation. Yet to the untrained heart, the latter often feels more real, precisely because the emotional stakes are higher, the contrast sharper, the highs so much sweeter after the crushing lows. Ask yourself, have you ever mistaken emotional turbulence for passion? Have you ever equated uncertainty with excitement? Most people have, and it is not because they are foolish, but because human beings are neurologically wired to pay attention to extremes. Steady happiness fades into the background, while dramatic peaks and valleys sear themselves into memory. This is why toxic relationships often feel unforgettable. They are not necessarily better. They are simply more chemically intense. Men caught in these cycles often chase the women who give them just enough hope to stay invested, followed by enough coldness to make them panic, crave, and recommit their efforts. The Stoic path, however, is not one of manipulation or emotional instability. It is a path of deep emotional regulation, of offering connection without surrendering to the chaos of unpredictable reinforcement. But to navigate this path wisely, you must understand how and why emotional roller coasters create addiction in the first place. Emotional inconsistency triggers a survival response. The human brain, especially the amygdala, interprets unpredictability in important relationships as a threat. This triggers anxiety, hyperfocus, and obsessive behavior. Evolutionary survival mechanisms designed to resolve relational uncertainty, because historically being rejected from a tribe could mean death. Thus, modern dating still runs on ancient survival software. A man whose emotional brain is activated by a woman's inconsistency may intellectually know he should move on, but biochemically he is hooked. He feels a need to win her over, to restore connection, to resolve the dissonance. And each time he succeeds, even temporarily, he experiences a rush of relief and pleasure far more intense than if the connection had been stable all along. This is how trauma bonds form. The stronger the emotional pain, the stronger the relief, and thus the stronger the attachment. Stoicism teaches us to recognize these patterns and to break free from them, to seek peace over excitement, to choose stability over chaos. For a woman operating with Love Stoic principles, the goal is not to create emotional roller coasters intentionally. Rather, it is to live authentically, offering genuine connection when it is deserved and preserving emotional energy when it is not. However, she must be aware that moments of distance, natural and unforced, can and will trigger a man's emotional attachment through these deep mechanisms. Knowing this, she must wield her influence with wisdom and responsibility, never toying with a man's emotions for sport, but also never compromising her own standards out of fear of losing him during moments of withdrawal. Emotional roller coasters feel like true love because they engage every survival mechanism within us. They make the stakes feel higher. They make every small victory feel monumental. They create a sense of urgency, of desperate importance that calm and stable relationships rarely produce. But true stoic love does not depend on these chemical spikes. True stoic love is grounded in mutual respect, in emotional maturity, in the calm assurance that both partners are choosing each other freely and consistently, without manipulation or desperation. Yet we must also acknowledge that the initial phases of attraction often benefit from a slight degree of uncertainty. Total predictability kills early-stage excitement. A small amount of emotional variability, when genuine and not manipulative, can amplify attraction and create memorable emotional imprints. It is the excessive toxic swings that must be avoided. Living your life fully, pursuing your goals, prioritizing your well-being, naturally introduces healthy unpredictability into relationships. You will not always be available. You will not always be in the same emotional state. And this natural variability, when rooted in authenticity rather than strategy, enhances your magnetic pull without leading others into emotional addiction. Love Stoic encourages you to strike this balance consciously, to live richly and fully, allowing natural unpredictability to season your connections, but never allowing chaos or games to become the foundation. Emotional maturity means recognizing that while roller coasters may feel exhilarating, true love is built on trust, on steadiness, on shared growth. The Stoic woman does not seek to be a storm, she seeks to be a mountain. Steady, unmoved, inspiring awe, not through turbulence, but through enduring strength. Men who are ready for true partnership will recognize this strength and find it more irresistible than any drama ever could. They will appreciate the emotional safety you offer, the calm confidence you embody, the rare gift of a connection that does not demand constant turmoil to feel alive. In contrast, men addicted to emotional chaos will either grow through their connection with you or self-select out, unable to thrive without constant drama. Either outcome serves your highest good. Emotional roller coasters appeal to the wounded parts of ourselves, the parts that confuse anxiety with excitement, fear with passion, inconsistency with love. The Stoic path calls us to heal those wounds, to seek not the highest highs or the lowest lows, but the profound enduring fulfillment that comes from authentic, grounded connection. It requires patience, it requires discernment. It requires faith that what is steady can also be thrilling in its own quiet, powerful way. Think about the relationships that have brought you the most lasting happiness. Were they defined by emotional chaos or by mutual respect and calm depth? The answer is clear when we strip away the illusions of intensity. True love, the kind that lasts decades, that weathers storms without crumbling, that grows richer with time, is not a carnival ride, it is a journey. It is a pilgrimage of two souls walking side by side, choosing each other not because the emotional spikes demand it, but because the quiet loyalty calls for it. You are not here to be someone's addiction. You are here to be someone's anchor. You are not here to create chaos for attention. You are here to create sanctuary through presence. You are not here to offer roller coasters. You are here to offer mountains. Love Stoic teaches that true attraction begins with excitement but endures through peace. And it is only those who master themselves, who refuse to be enslaved by emotional volatility, who can create and sustain such love. Emotional roller coasters feel like true love because they light up every desperate neuron in our brains. But Stoicism teaches us to rise above biological tricks and choose consciously. Will you choose chaos or will you choose depth? Will you settle for drama or will you hold out for devotion? The answers lie not in him, but in you. 6. Social status and exclusivity. Why being selective makes you queen. Social status and exclusivity are forces that have shaped human behavior since the very beginning of civilization. And though modern life has added complexity, the fundamental psychology remains unchanged. Men are biologically and socially programmed to seek status, to elevate standing within social hierarchies. And nothing amplifies a man's perception of status more than winning the approval and attention of a woman who is perceived as rare, selective, and high value. The Stoic mind understands that perceived exclusivity creates real power. What is accessible to everyone is desired by no one, but what is reserved for the few becomes a prize of inestimable worth. If you wish to command a man's deepest pursuit and respect, you must understand that your selectivity is not just about protecting your heart. It is about magnifying your perceived social value in his eyes and the eyes of others. When a man sees that not every man can have you, that not every man even gets the chance to stand in your presence, his instincts fire on all cylinders. He recognizes that your approval, your companionship, your affection are not commodities to be bought cheaply. They are treasures to be earned through effort, dedication, and true character. Love Stoic teaches that you are not just another face in the crowd. You are a limited edition, a once-in-a-lifetime phenomenon, and you must carry yourself accordingly if you want men to respond to you with the awe and devotion you deserve. Exclusivity is not about being arrogant or cold. It is about understanding that your time, your energy, your emotional intimacy are sacred resources. In Stoicism, we are taught to guard what is precious, to waste nothing valuable on those unworthy of it, and your heart is among the most valuable assets you possess. A woman who gives her energy indiscriminately dilutes her own power. A woman who offers it sparingly with discernment and intention multiplies her influence exponentially. Men are drawn to the woman who is not trying to be seen by everyone but who chooses who gets to see her. They are magnetized by the woman who does not need the crowd's approval because she is already secure within herself. Exclusivity signals self-respect. It signals confidence. It signals that you are not in competition with other women because you are in a league of your own. When a man senses that winning you would elevate his own status, not because you are a trophy, but because you are a standard of excellence, he invests more heavily, more passionately, and more sincerely. It is a fundamental truth of social psychology that people value what others value. If a woman is pursued by many, but chooses carefully, her perceived value skyrockets. But if she chases validation, offering herself too easily to anyone willing to give her temporary attention, her value plummets, regardless of her external beauty or charm. Men are watching how you treat yourself. They are watching whether you say yes to anyone who asks, or whether you hold your standards with unwavering strength. They are watching whether your life reflects abundance and purpose, or whether you are desperately seeking affirmation. The Stoic woman does not seek affirmation from men. She lives her purpose, and the right men are drawn to her light. Her exclusivity is not a strategy. It is a natural byproduct of her deep sense of self-worth. Social status also operates within male psychology on a competitive level. When a man sees that you are selective, when he realizes that winning your attention means surpassing countless others who were not chosen, he feels a surge of pride and accomplishment if he succeeds. This taps directly into the masculine need for challenge and conquest. But it also creates a deeper emotional bond, because he feels that being chosen by you elevates him not only in the eyes of others, but in his own eyes. Love Stoic reminds you, you are the gatekeeper to a kingdom he wishes to enter, and not every knight deserves passage. You must hold your gift with discernment, wisdom, and calm certainty. When you choose carefully, you do not just protect yourself. You create an environment where the right man can truly appreciate the privilege of being close to you. Exclusivity also introduces scarcity into the dynamic, amplifying all previous psychological triggers we have discussed. Scarcity creates urgency. Urgency creates effort. Effort creates emotional investment. And emotional investment creates lasting connection. Men will work harder, invest more, and cherish longer what they feel is rare, valuable, and difficult to obtain. Your selectivity is not just a defense mechanism. It is an amplifier of desire, a magnifier of value, and a builder of true emotional bonds. Stoicism teaches us to act not out of fear, but out of principle. You are not selective because you fear getting hurt. You are selective because you honor your own value. You are not exclusive because you are playing hard to get. You are exclusive because you genuinely recognize that not everyone is worthy of what you offer. This distinction matters. Authentic exclusivity is magnetic. Fake exclusivity feels manipulative and repelled. Living by Stoic principles means you cultivate a life so rich, so full, so deeply satisfying that only those who genuinely align with your values and aspirations are allowed entry. In doing so, you naturally repel those who would waste your time and attract those who are serious, intentional, and worthy. Social status is not about vanity. It is about meaning. It is about choosing to share your life, your body, your mind, your soul only with those who have demonstrated that they can meet you at your highest standards. This is not cruelty. It is clarity. It is kindness to yourself and to others, allowing everyone to find their right place without resentment or confusion. The Stoic woman is a queen, not because she demands worship, but because she reigns over herself. She does not ask for permission to be valued. She does not lower her standards to be liked. She does not betray her soul to fill temporary loneliness. She holds her head high, moves with quiet power, and trusts that what is meant for her will recognize her light and rise to meet her. Love Stoic teaches that true power in love comes from living by your principles, not bending for convenience. Exclusivity rooted in genuine self-respect transforms the dating landscape. It filters the worthy from the unworthy swiftly and effortlessly. It builds relationships on the foundation of true admiration rather than shallow attraction. It elevates not only how men see you, but how you see yourself. Ask yourself now, are you treating yourself like the rare, valuable, one-of-a-kind woman you truly are? Are you offering your attention, your time, your energy as sacred gifts, or are you giving them away in the hope of being chosen? Stoicism demands that we choose ourselves first, that we live with such unwavering self-respect that others must either rise to meet us or fall away. When you embody exclusivity authentically, you become unforgettable. You become the standard by which all others are measured. You become the queen, not because you demanded the title, but because you lived the life that made it undeniable. Social status and exclusivity are not optional in the dynamics of attraction. They are essential. They operate whether you recognize them or not. The question is whether you will wield these forces consciously and wisely, or whether you will be at their mercy unconsciously. Choose awareness, choose strength, choose sovereignty, choose the path of love Stoic. And if you are feeling the power of living this way, if you resonate with the queen of your own life, go ahead and smash that like button. Comment number 1 below to claim your sovereignty. And make sure you subscribe to this channel so we can continue rising together in true stoicism and authentic love. Understanding why men become addicted to women who ignore them is not about manipulation or playing games. It is about seeing clearly the hidden forces that govern human attraction. Forces most people remain blind to their entire lives. Throughout this journey, we have uncovered 6 profound psychological truths. The primal hunter's instinct that awakens only in the face of distance. The law of scarcity that magnifies value. The addictive power of intermittent reinforcement. The deep hunger for validation that drives pursuit. The intoxicating confusion of emotional roller coasters mistaken for love. And the irresistible elevation created by exclusivity and social status. Each of these truths stands alone in its impact. But together they form an unbreakable framework for understanding attraction at its deepest levels. Love Stoic teaches that true power in relationships comes not from strategies, but from self-mastery. You do not need to pretend to be someone you are not. You need only to become fully who you are. Rooted, rare, selective, sovereign. When you embody these principles authentically, you do not chase love. You become love's destination. You become the prize, the standard, the one whose approval transforms a man's view of himself and his life. Yet the real transformation lies not in how men respond to you, but in how you respond to yourself. Stoicism demands that we look inward first, that we build the kind of life that feels full and rich, with or without external validation. From that fullness, true magnetism is born. When you are no longer desperate to be chosen, you become the woman everyone wants to choose. When you are no longer anxious to be loved, you radiate a love that draws others in effortlessly. The patterns you have learned today are not merely tricks of psychology. They are reflections of timeless human nature. They existed before dating apps, before modern society, before the first love song was ever sung. They are etched into the architecture of our minds and bodies. And mastering them is not about deception. It is about alignment. Alignment with truth. Alignment with nature. Alignment with your highest self. As you move forward from this moment, carry these lessons with the gravity and grace they deserve. Let them inform your choices, shape your standards, and sharpen your awareness. Let them be the quiet armor that protects your heart without hardening it. Let them be the compass that guides you not toward fleeting attention, but toward lasting, meaningful connection. And above all, let them be the reminder that you are already enough. You are always enough. You do not need to beg, chase, or plead for love. You need only to stand firmly in your worth, and let the right man rise to meet you. This is the way of love Stoic. This is the path of true stoicism and love. Walk it boldly, and the life, the love, and the legacy you desire will unfold before you. Not through striving, but through sovereign becoming.
Have you ever found yourself lying awake, wondering if the man who lingers a little too long in your life actually feels more than he lets on? Maybe you've seen it in his eyes, that fleeting vulnerability he tries so hard to conceal. Or maybe you've noticed how he remembers things no one else does, how he shows up just when you need someone most, how he cares in ways that don't scream, but whisper, and yet nothing said, no confession, no label, no confirmation, just silence confusing. Right? Here's a common misconception. If a man loves you, he'll just say it. Simple, straightforward. But let me challenge that idea. What if the deepest love isn't loud? What if it's hidden, not because it's weak, but because it's sacred? Because for some men to admit love is to walk barefoot across a battlefield. It's not about pride, it's about survival. You see, we've been taught to recognize love in grand gestures, the big speeches, the dramatic declarations. But love, stoic, isn't always like that. Sometimes it lives in the quiet moments. The ones so small you almost miss them. That's what this is about. We're stepping into a different realm of understanding. Men, not just what they say, but what they show when they're not even trying. If you've ever felt like you're in the middle of something powerful but unspoken, this might just be the missing puzzle piece. We'll break down 6 powerful, emotionally charged signs that he truly loves you, but fear is holding him back. These aren't the typical tips you hear recycled again and again. These are raw, real insights pulled from the hidden corners of male psychology. They could change how you see everything. And here's the catch. Once you see these signs, you can't unsee them. They will shift the way you approach connection. They will sharpen your emotional intelligence. They will align you with the principles of stoicism and emotional resilience, not just in love, but in how you navigate intimacy as a whole. Are you ready for that kind of transformation? Because the truth is, silent love is not absence. It's a presence, contained. And once you recognize the language it speaks, you'll start seeing everything differently. So stay with me, don't skip ahead, and definitely don't click away, because somewhere in this video is the exact answer you've been looking for. Ready to dive in? Let's start with the first sign you'll never look at the way he looks at you the same way again. 1, his eyes say what his mouth can't. Have you noticed the way his eyes linger on you? A glance that stretches a heartbeat longer as though he's trying to read your soul in that moment? Everything else falls away. The noise of daily life, the expectations you carry, even your own defenses. His gaze isn't just seeing you, it's feeling you. But then just as suddenly he looks away, as if he's afraid of what might happen if he holds your gaze any longer. This isn't random behavior. It's not a quirk. It's a language. Here's a stoic truth. Actions, especially the unconscious ones, speak louder than words. His eyes are betraying an impulse he can't express, and probably isn't even aware of. When words fail him, his eyes pick up the slack. They convey longing, fear, vulnerability, all rolled into one fleeting moment that dissolves before he realizes what he's done. Ask yourself, do you ever catch him watching you when he thinks you're not looking? Maybe across the room, maybe while you're laughing with friends, or when you let your guard down and be yourself. There it is again, that look that says, I feel something, but I can't say it. And just like that, he turns away, head dropping slightly, like a man trying to hide the sun. In his hands, that hesitation tells you more than a million words could. It speaks of someone wrestling with their own fear. Fear of vulnerability, fear of rejection, fear of being seen too clearly. This is the heart of Stoicism, understanding that what we hold inside shapes what we project outside. His gaze reveals the raw truth that his words are hiding. Pause for a moment and consider how this pattern might be playing out between you two. You catch his eyes, and he shifts, an imperceptible moment that carrying the weight of unspoken confession. It may feel frustrating, even confusing, because the silence that follows carries more tension than anything he would have said. But if you have the courage to look deeper, you'll see an invitation, a silent call begging to be understood. There's a profound quality to acknowledging this kind of silent chemistry. It's not about forcing transparency or demanding an explanation. It's more like standing in a powerful pause, a stoic moment of recognition that the most honest conversations don't always need words. His eyes are speaking, and if you listen, you begin to hear the echo of something real and vulnerable love. Stoic. That phrase carries weight here because in that tension, in that almost too long linger of his gaze, you're witnessing him dismantle his defenses. You're seeing a man torn between protecting himself and reaching for you. But how do you respond when you experience that moment? Do you meet his gaze or shy away? Do you pretend you didn't see it? Or do you try to hold that space silently, acknowledging that what's happening is more meaningful than either of you may be ready to admit? This is where emotional intelligence meets stoicism. Saying less, feeling more, and letting the moment breathe. Let me ask you this. When was the last time you allowed someone to hold your gaze without flinching? To be fully present with nothing to prove? That's the kind of presence he's testing. A space where he can risk showing up without being completely exposed. And you, by meeting him there, give him permission to take one small step toward acknowledgement without making it a demand or a confrontation. Eyes are the doorways of the soul. He doesn't walk through fully the ego, and his fears are standing guard, but he hovers near the threshold. And when he looks at you that way, he's offering a glimpse of something that lies beyond the silence, the potential of real connection anchored by trust. It's a reminder that not all love is called out loud. Some of it is whispered in the spaces between breaths. I want you to imagine this. You're sitting together, nothing scripted, nothing performance-based. He looks at you, his eyes soften. A flicker of emotion crosses his expression. Longing, fear, hope, then nothing. He looks away at Swift, but the moment lingers. You feel it in the way your chest tightens, in the shift in atmosphere that's him speaking with his eyes, a raw, unfiltered moment of love. Stoic? It's happening, but it's hidden. It's powerful, but fragile. Now, here's the stoic challenge. Can you hold that space with him? Can you endure the silence that follows his gaze? Can you meet his vulnerability with your own? Not by demanding clarity, but by safety, by acknowledging that what you both feel matters, even if it hasn't been named yet. In that soil, love takes root. This is not manipulation, and it's not playing games. It's a dance of authenticity. By being present without responding with words or pressure, you become a steady presence, a quiet foundation in contrast to his storm of unspoken emotion. You reflect back to him, I see you, and it's okay. There's a phrase in Stoicism about focusing on what you can control and releasing the rest. You can't make him speak his truth, but you can hold an energetic posture that lets him know his vulnerability isn't a weakness. You can let your own eyes speak the words he can't say. Drama, or moments that never evolve, what you're cultivating is a shared space, an emotional container where true confession can eventually surface. This is how you invite growth without forcing it, how you encourage honesty without exposing anyone too soon. The subtle signals can be surprisingly strong. A glance that lingers, a breath that hesitates, a look exchanged that doesn't match his words. These are not accidents. These are transmissions of love. Stoic words unspoken, but felt, they're portals of authenticity. And they matter more than people often realize. Because when a man loves but fears to admit it, the most revealing parts of his truth come through the unfiltered nature of his eyes, the unconscious parts of him shaped by past scars and expectations surface in those moments. This is the intersection where stoicism meets emotional truth, where silence becomes meaningful, and where real love begins in the absence of declarations. How far could this silent dialogue carry you both if you let it? That's the question. It's not about forcing a confession, It's about letting the quiet speak loud enough that his fear begins to shrink. Lean into his gaze. Hold it. Allow its truth to resonate. This is where a silent shift begins. This is where healing transparency can emerge from within. And this is where you both step deeper into what's possible, not by chasing words, but by honoring what's already being said. 2, he remembers what you forgot. Have you ever said something in passing, a 3-second comment about your favorite coffee blend, a childhood story, the name of that friend you hadn't seen in years, and then caught yourself wondering, did he even notice you? Thought it was offhand, almost trivial. But later he mentions it. You like that cinnamon hazelnut roast? Or what about Sarah, the friend who made you cry that day? And suddenly you realize he's been listening all along. More than listening, he's internalizing. This isn't coincidence. It isn't about politeness or basic memory. It's something deeper. When a man repeatedly remembers your forgotten details, he's broadcasting intention without even realizing it. It's unconscious. It's emotional investment in its raw, unfiltered state. And here's what makes it profound from a love Stoic perspective. In Stoicism, we're not taught just to note what's said. It's about noticing what's unsaid, the micro moments that pass between the syllables. This is how genuine care shows itself in a world obsessed with grand gestures. Think about it. People often say, real love is big and dramatic, full of flashy declarations, but the truest affirmations are quieter. They're woven into everyday acts. When he remembers your anxiety ritual, how you sip tea slow when you're stressed, or the song that always calms you at night, that is emotional presence. That's attentive witnessing. He's witnessing you, even the edges you forget exist. Ask yourself, when was the last time someone remembered one of your offhand comments? Maybe a coworker noticed you mentioned your favorite candle scent and showed up with one next week. But that's nothing compared to the guy in your life, someone you thought might be distracted, relating with a deeper awareness, asking about a memory you barely registered yourself. Why does this matter so much? Because it speaks directly to his internal world. The mind of someone who loves you silently is constantly scanning your life like a detective, but with softness, with reverence. If you ever feel he cares without saying it, this might be why he's noticing the opening in your soul. He's mapping the terrain of you, and in remembering, he's communicating, you matter to me. Every time he brings up something you forgot, a mental signature is left. It sends a signal deeper than words. It broadcasts with clarity. He's using what you forgot to prove what he didn't. You're important. Let me challenge you. Do you allow yourself to receive these moments, or do you greet them with skepticism or dismissal? Because realizing this kind of attentive behavior isn't a matter of flattery. It's confirmation. Confirmation that what's happening between you isn't random, it's evolving. And in a Stoic mindset, we lean into what is not what we fear it could be. We let truth settle into our bones. What happens within him when he recalls something small? He smiles inside. There's this warmth, a sense of connection, a secret joy that he's carrying. He's built a silent archive of you, and he'll access it again, because without forcing it, it's his toolkit for moments of care. He might show up when you're having car trouble, recalling a detail about your battery's age, or bring soup on a rainy day because he remembered your failed crock pot attempt last winter. Little touches big, meaning you may have seen videos or articles equating love to grand declarations, flowers, proposal, drive-in movie surprises. But here's the Stoic pushback. Those moments are finite, short-lived. What endures is steady attention, love habits repeated, micro commitments. That's how something as seemingly fragile as remembering can become the bedrock of trust. Now, I want you to reflect. Did you ever share something you assumed was forgotten, only to have it reappear in his conversation? Do you notice him referencing your offhand bits even before you realize the connection? That isn't random. That's unconscious devotion, something love Stoic in its deepest form. He's building intimacy by preserving your details. He's mapping your soul, and here lies your next task, not to lean in and ask in admiration, rather to lean in with presence. In Stoicism, we're asked to recognize what's worthy of respect, recognize what's real when he brings up that detail about your childhood dog, or asks you again how you made the blueberry muffins. Don't brush it off, pause, acknowledge it, let him know without fanfare. You notice he noticed that subtle. Thank you. Can shift the energy. It validates his investment. It says your effort in remembering meant something to me. That's not manipulation. It's conscious reciprocity, rooted in Stoic practice. But let's push this further. What if you asked him about something you want him to know, slightly more personal, more intimate, and he remembers it too? How does that land? That tells you his attention is unconditional, not just for what's convenient, but for what matters, even when it's unexpected. That's beyond casual interest. That's love. Stoic attention laced with meaning. You might wonder, is this cause for interference? Should you test and probe? Did you really think about my childhood, or were you just being nice? Don't keep it organic. The beauty of this sign is its authenticity. It isn't a tactic. It isn't a performance. It's a quiet discipline of caring. The Stoic would say, let what happens be enough. Don't probe. Simply acknowledge. Your awareness of it shifts the dynamic, because now he knows seeing you is noticed, maybe even reciprocated, in his own silent way. Observe how his tone shifts when he brings up your forgotten detail. There's something gentle in his voice, something tentative. It's not boastful, it's humbling. And when you respond with genuine gratitude, when you allow yourself to be witnessed, that exchange opens a quiet portal of trust. It invites him to take the next step, still without pressure, but with new potential for vulnerability. This is where love Stoic meets Stoicism. Two sides of the same principle. One anchors you in unspoken reassurance, the other empowers you to hold that moment without forcing it, because vulnerability grows stronger when it's invited into safe soil. Let me give you an example. You mention offhandedly that you miss a friend who moved to another city. Weeks later, he notices you staring at a photo and gently says, "Hey, how's Mark doing? I remember he moved to Denver." That small surfacing of memory echoes care. If he followed up, calling the friend, asking how you feel, you see what emerges when that awareness is present. It becomes emotional engagement, not spectacle, but substance. And that can move your relationship from quiet interest into gentle tending. Emotionally, these recollections act like anchor points. They tether your shared space. They slow the drift, and they sync your energies in an intentional sync to synchronous rhythms that form something deeper than friendship, but without the pressure of confession that's generative connection. So when you witness this, ask yourself, do I allow space for this kind of emotional momentum, or do I rush ahead, pushing for intensity before we've laid the groundwork? A Stoic stance would encourage patience, presence, respect. Allow him to continue showing he cares. Notice the repetition. Is he consistent? Is he intuitive? Are his memories blossoming into actions? That's your guide. He may never write poetry about your quirks, but he remembers them. Maybe he texts you to check how that story turned out. Maybe he sends you a song with lyrics you mentioned in passing. Maybe he simply asks about your evening without prompting. These are not coincidences. They're pieces of a puzzle. He's quietly assembling a larger picture of you and, by extension, your relationship. This isn't about playing hard to get. It's about recognizing that this kind of care, unrhymed, unscripted, yet emotionally loaded, is a foundation. If you keep missing it, you'll skip what could be the strongest pulse you both share. He's showing up emotionally in ways that feel invisible until you highlight them. Both of you may undervalue what's already present. Love, stoic, isn't forced. It's not hyper-romantic. It's a quiet declaration. I remember you even when it's inconvenient, even when it's easy to forget. And that means I hold you in mind. That says, in essence, you matter to me. Isn't that the crux of real intimacy? Not grand promises, but repeated anchor points that say, I'm here, I'm paying attention. I haven't stopped noticing, even in the tiny details. Now, let me pause here, because if this resonates, it's time to act. Notice when he remembers. Let him know subtly that you appreciate it, a smile, a genuine va. That means a lot, a soft eye contact, no fanfare, no calling him out, just acknowledgement. That's the catalyst for deeper safety. One that may encourage him to speak the words he's been circling around. And hey, if this part of the video sparks something inside you, go ahead, and comment number 1. If you resonate with this point, don't forget to subscribe for the rest of this journey, because we're just getting started, unraveling the hidden language of real connection through emotional intelligence, presence, and Stoicism 3. He shows up when it matters most. Have you ever found yourself overwhelmed, facing a personal crisis, or simply feeling low, and then he appears without any announcement? It's as though he's been quietly navigating behind the scenes, attuned to the subtle shifts in your world, present just when you need him. No grand gestures, no spotlight, just his presence. Reliable, grounded, and unspokenly committed. This is not casual coincidence. This isn't the result of habit or convenience. He shows up because he cares, even when he's afraid to admit it. When you're struggling at work, he sends an encouraging message out of the blue. When you're having car trouble, he's there with tools before you've even asked. When you're emotionally fragile, he stays nearby, listening, attentive, even if he doesn't know how to articulate his feelings. That is how love shows up when spoken words are trapped behind the walls of fear in the fast-paced world we live in. We satisfy ourselves with talk and promises, but actions like these are far more revealing. We're trained to value the loud, the visible, the dramatic, but emotional sincerity often thrives in the quiet moments, in the everyday decisions. Showing up when it matters is emotional courage cloaked in ordinariness. It's not a performance, it's a commitment. Ask yourself, when was the last time someone offered actual dependable presence without grandstanding? Not for a photo or social validation, but because they experience an internal compulsion to be there. These are moments you don't easily forget. They're not flashy, they're essential. They tell you what words, can't you matter to me? This is where Stoicism and love Stoic truly converge. The Stoic virtues, wisdom, courage, temperance, and justice manifest not in over-the-top acts, but through consistent, grounded fidelity. A man may fear vulnerability, shame, or rejection, but still, he summons the composure to act. He stays when it's uncomfortable. He cares when it's inconvenient. And yes, he shows up in the hardest moments because he's tethered to something deeper than fear. Consider the Thanksgiving illness you got last year. You were home shot with a fever, and without a hint of fanfare, he appeared at your door with homemade soup. Or that time your car broke down in the rain, and he showed up with an umbrella. These aren't mere favors. They're acts of emotional loyalty. They speak to a silent agreement. I'm with you. These aren't gestures made for show. They represent investment in your well-being without pretense or expectation. He doesn't broadcast these acts. He's not posting it online. He doesn't need validation because he's already affirmed himself in this quiet affirmation of care. That's the subtle genius of love. Stoic true affection doesn't clamor for attention. It sustains itself by meeting needs without obligation. Now, this raises a question. If he's showing up, why remain silent about his feelings? Because words are vulnerably explosive. Actions can be measured, contextualized, repaired. Words, if you say, I love you, then retract your exposed but. If you make regular gestures of support, you can dial them up or down, remain ambiguous, remain safe. This is his safety net, his way to express devotion. without risking heartbreak, shame, or rejection. So when you feel his presence in your crisis, like the gentle hovering, the quiet assistance, pause, recognize it, feel it, resist the urge to call it into question. Instead of saying, "Why did you do this?" say to yourself, "I see you here." That's the equivalent of acknowledgement in Love Stoic philosophy. That silent witnessing is powerful. It says, "I'm not blind to what you've given me." It gives dignity to his hesitance and still honors his love. Let me share a deeper angle. What's happening internally for him when he shows up? It's not just kindness. It's the battle of anxiety and love that pushes through uncertainty. He's choosing you over his instinct to remain safe, to stay away, to not risk exposure, that he's here. It's his quiet declaration to himself that you're worth the risk. It challenges his fear piece by piece in real time. Remaining present in someone's hardship isn't easy. It triggers emotions. It demands patience. It forces you to share space with another's messiness. For someone already avoiding emotional floods, stepping into that space is courageous, steady, love, and action. It is a slow, grounded movement toward trust. Even if trust hasn't been declared in these moments, his face isn't radiant. It's not dramatic. It's resolute. He doesn't say, "I love you." He simply says, "I'm here," which within the Stoicism context is enough, because Stoicism isn't about suppressing emotion. It's about directing it appropriately. He's directing love into presence, letting his actions speak where his words stay silent. The real gift here is what it awakens in you. Do something simple. Meet his presence with gratitude, constant reassurance that your world brightens when he's there. A soft thank you, a lingering hug, small, quiet, intentional, that gives permission for more, showing more presence, more hints at what lies behind the silence. But here's the balance. You don't want to become reliant on the rescue dynamic. Over time, presence becomes expectation. So keep it reciprocal. Acknowledge, but also contribute care. Send him soup when he's sick. Be there when he's overwhelmed with his own stress. That creates emotional parity, a foundation of trust without demands. By recognizing these moments of emotional investment, you're drawing a quiet contract, a silent recognition that care, anchored in presence, is a form of love, even without the three words. When he shows up where it matters, you can feel the intersection of intimacy and emotional responsibility. This is no small thing. So if you've ever felt gratitude for a quiet rescue or wondered why he comes through even when words are missing, recognize this. It's a dowie of sincerity, presence, persistence, reliability. In a world obsessed with declarations, you can build something stronger through quietly supporting each other. That's the essence of love. Stoic. And as this moment settles, consider, how has his presence shaped your experience of care and trust? Let his actions speak to you. Accept them as the reality of his affection, even without the verbal confession. Let it transform how you define love. Co-create something built on quiet strength. This is where real love begins, not with words, but with faithful presence. 4. He's jealous, but subtly so. Notice how he reacts when you talk about someone else, someone who might get your attention. Maybe you mention a male colleague and his tone shifted, or perhaps when you laughed about a flirtatious comment someone else made, he quieted, already processing it, wasn't angry, not dramatic. Jealousy, just something deeper, almost imperceptible. That quiet hesitation, that momentary shift. It matters because jealousy isn't always possessiveness. Sometimes it's recognition that something valuable is at stake, and acknowledging that holds emotional weight, even if unspoken. Think about a recent moment like this. You were talking about someone else's message, and he shifted fast, changed the subject, took a sip of water, stared at his hands. That wasn't random. That micro reaction is his emotional radar triggering. He caught something. He feels something that matters. And at the same time, something he's afraid to admit. This is stoic jealousy, not explosive, not destructive, but reflective, a sign that what you feel matters to him more than it should. Here's the Stoic framing. Jealousy isn't the enemy. It's a feedback loop, an internal alarm signaling that something precious could be lost for someone practicing Stoicism. Jealousy is neither demonized nor dismissed. It's observed. It's acknowledged as part of human nature. A mirror point for internal alignment. He may not have mastered it, but you notice is the signal behind it a tremor of care wrapped in hesitation. Jealousy also tests his boundaries. He may fear being too needy. He may worry that expressing jealousy might scare you away. So instead, restraint, you witness genuine intention, like love trying to step forward, while fear holds its hand. Ask yourself, have you ever observed him become quieter, more introspective the second you talk about another man? Or maybe he asks too many just curious questions. Oh, really? Are you close? The slight change in tone, that's not idle interest. That's vigilance. That's concern. That's silent possibility. He's gathering intel, not to judge, but to understand something. He's afraid to admit his own fear of losing you. Another clue, he might laugh off jealousy, make a joke, deflect, but notice how deep under that humor goes. The corners of his eyes tense. The deflection carries a telling emotional pattern. He's afraid of showing too much, and yet even in his joke, he's revealing something real. He's revealing you in his world. And that matters more than comfort zones ever will. Here's where you can step in silent agency. You don't have to confront him, just notice. Maybe ask yourself a question, why am I sensing a shift? What does that tell me about what's really happening here? Internal stoicism meets external attunement. You are becoming aware of emotional undercurrents. No drama, just truth emerging. But here's the thing, jealousy, even gentle, can erode trust if left unnoticed. If you see him retracting, pulling back emotionally, you have a choice. Address it with softness, or risk letting it fester. A breath, a look, a question whispered, "Hey, is everything okay?" can be enough to show you're not threatening his place in your life. It can transform jealousy into emotional honesty, a doorway to deeper connection. Think of it like this. His jealousy opens a door, though he's not sure whether to step through. You can't force him, but you can provide the light on the other side. You can create the safe moment where he realizes this feeling doesn't have to be his obstacle. It can be your mutual clarity. It's not your job to explain away his feelings. It's simply to acknowledge them compassionately, show that it's okay, it's part of loving. Then watch how slowly he begins to open. Because when someone's afraid to admit how they feel, but still makes emotional room, that's progress. That's the movement from fear toward authenticity. And what if after some time he shows a little more openness, like he leans in when you mention another guy and then listens instead of recoiling? It signals his confidence growing, his comfort wearing thin less. It suggests he's unearthing a version of himself that trusts both you and the love he feels. But the first visible step often begins with that tiny emotional friction, the quiet bit of jealousy. It's a signal worth honoring. Now, part of feeling safe together means knowing we can say real things. I feel a little worried can sound like weakness, but to him it's invitation. It's a stoic container allowing vulnerability without collapse. You don't need to fix it, you just need to witness it. I'm here, you might think or say, I value you, and I understand this moment, there's beauty here. He may never utter, I love you, but he's willing to feel the interior tremor that comes when love is perceived elsewhere. That tremor, it's a silent admission. And if you can hold that moment without judgment, you stand beside him in emotional courage, even without a confession. Reflect on this. Who in your life loves you quietly and yet jealous of losing you shows up with that soft hesitation? Maybe it's in conversation, maybe it's in a look, maybe it's in the heartbeat after a passing mention. Once you see it everywhere. And intuitively, you can pivot. I appreciate you. I value us. That small emotional act is more powerful than any declaration because it aligns your worlds without forcing alignment. This is love stoic at work. Intuitive, patient, dignified. It doesn't scream. It waits for your noticing. And because it waits, when you notice it knows you're ready, it enters quietly. It grows subtly. It trusts your presence to hold space for its truth. Don't misinterpret neutrality for indifference. Sometimes love's guarded nature demands temperance with stoic recognition. You observe, you don't correct. You respond with steady presence, not drama. And that steady presence teaches him that showing love even in hesitant ways is not dangerous, that trust can bridge from safety to speech as you process this part. Reflect, have you gently pointed him toward feeling safe enough to admit jealousy? Have you mirrored back that what he cares for is sacred to you too? That simple I understand builds emotional scaffolding, and when he finally says something, anything, it won't be forced, it'll be real. If this piece resonates, don't hesitate. And comment number 1, so I know this insight is landing. And subscribe to continue unlocking the silent rhythms between us. The gentle language where stoicism meets love. 5, he includes you in his future without saying so. Imagine this, you're talking about future plans, vacations, career goals, or weekend routines, and he's there weaving his ideas with yours, gently aligning his vision with yours. He doesn't say we, but everything he describes echoes who you are. That subtle alignment, the quiet inclusion, is one of the most powerful signals of love held back by fear. We're often taught to recognize relationship commitment through big promises. Let's get married, let's buy a house, let's raise kids. But what we sometimes overlook is the quieter formation of shared dreaming. Here lies the essence of love. Stoic, a style of emotional dedication that builds through vision, not verbal proclamation. He's already granting you a place in his world, and he's building that future silently, even if admitting affection feels like stepping onto thin ice. Think back, did he ever talk about moving to a different city and casually mention a cafe you'd love? Did he reference a hobby you enjoy when describing plans or when he imagined a summer? Did he describe space that feels like yours? These small instantiations without a direct statement of intent are powerful markers. They say, I can see you here with me. That matters far more than an empty phrase ever could. What he's doing under the radar is intangible but lasting. He's creating mental sketches of a life that includes you, incorporating your preferences, likes, and quirks as if they naturally belong to his blueprint. It's not theoretical, it's concrete. Whether he's factored in your favorite coffee shop or envisioned a weekend hike with your dream trail, he's applying silent emotional labor. The nature of Stoicism encourages clean, rational thought. You align your feelings with your actions, not just your words. What he's doing aligns with that. It's pragmatic, but soulful. His inclusion of you in future narratives without speaking it aloud is his mind's way of designing safety. It's building a journey together. Even if he finds speaking the word together too risky, ask yourself, did you hear him planning something that felt unusually connected to you? Maybe he casually said, If it snows, I'd love to check out that mountain town you mentioned. Your name never pops. There's no pushiness. Instead, he gives a non-committal but emotionally pointed nod that's his subconscious admitting, you belong in this. To a Stoic observer, silence doesn't mean absence, it means restraint. He's restraining his words to ensure they're not empty. So he shapes his intentions through invitation rather than declaration that matches Stoic discipline. Act well, and the words will follow, or don't need to. Now, how does this feel for you? If you sense him building future possibilities you weren't expecting, especially ones tailored around you, don't dismiss them as polite gestures. These are raw, meaningful cues. See them as the blueprint that could lead to deeper vulnerability. Let them guide you gently toward closer emotional moments. This is not an invitation to press. It's not your job to force clarity. Rather, it's your opportunity to mirror his sentiment through reciprocal engagement. Responding with appreciation. That sounds so much like us. Acknowledges the mutual potential. It invites next level vulnerability without forcing it. Consider the internal arc going on for him. He might be grappling with conflict, fear of losing control, anxiety about emotional exposure or past heartbreak. Closing him off each time he envisions a future that includes you. He's testing the water. It's a toe in the water. He hasn't jumped in yet, but something is compelling him to dip a toe. That internal tension, the push and pull of love. And fear is love in motion. As you witness these future shot stories, he paints with you in them. Don't question them. Instead, collect them. These are breadcrumb trails. They lead to the conversation he hasn't had yet. They suggest he's leaning into emotional possibility and is ready to act, if only the environment feels safe enough. When you respond with warmth or acknowledgement, you give him permission to explore more. When you say, I'd love to see us there someday, you validate his mental blueprint. That validation may not instantly break his silence, but it reinforces it's safe to dream together. Slowly, that permission can loosen fear's grip. Now the future can begin to feel like it belongs to two people, not just a careful internal sketch. And here's where the magic of love, Stoic, and Stoicism coalesce. It's about emotional management, not emotional avoidance. He includes you in his plans, not because he's ready to declare, but because he's disciplined enough to envision and respectful enough to incorporate. He's preparing himself and preparing you without demand or spectacle. Your part is essential. When you sense an echo of yourself in his future scenarios, reflect it. You might say, that sounds beautiful. Or I can picture us there. No fireworks, no setting expectations, just a grounding of emotional connection, a quiet strengthening in Stoic hearts. Actions come before words. When words arrive, they'll hold gravity shaped by shared reality, not performance. Through this dynamic, you're co-creating safety, not by pushing him, but by witnessing evidence that he's taking emotional steps. You're aligning him with your trust. Let him reinforce that trust at his own pace. And when he does speak, it won't be loaded. It will feel earned. This process calls for confidence, emotional clarity, and intentional patience, foundations of Stoicism. To steward this kind of love means you see value beyond words. You appreciate directional alignment through quiet co-authorship of a shared life. You help him move from maybe to yes by validating the journey, not demanding the destination. There's a point where enough breadcrumb trails build into enough weight that silence becomes untenable when the vision feels palpable. He may finally risk the words. And when he does, it'll feel earned. It'll matter. His words, when they come, won't be gestures. They'll be invitations that echo the future you've already been sketching together. So let this soak in. Take note of his quiet, inclusive future lining. Don't interrogate it, acknowledge it, mirror it. Let it breathe into your own conversations about what's next. And do not fear that he's leaving you guessing. He's inviting you into his thinking in ways no confession ever could. That's the spiritual clarity of love. Stoic, that's emotional integrity filtered through discipline. And that's where authentic love begins. Rooted not in talk, but in the slow construction of something real. 6, his behavior changes when he's with you. Have you ever noticed how he morphs into a different presence around you? So slight, yet unmistakable. It isn't a dramatic makeover or a rehearsed performance. It's almost imperceptible. His posture softens, his tone deepens, his attention sharpens in those moments. His entire demeanor shifts. Without fanfare, without intention. That's the quiet integrity of love. Stoic in action. He's showing up as himself, not as someone trying to impress. And that honesty is rare. Let's peel back what's happening. Imagine 2 different scenarios. One where he's in a social setting, joking with friends, half listening, and another where it's just the 2 of you, discussing your day, mundane, natural. In the first, he's charming and casual. In the second, his energy is composed, focused, and vulnerable. He's showing you who he is when masks drop, not who he wants you to think he is. These differences are fertile ground for connection. Because when a man's behavior changes in your company, something is shifting internally. It's not that he's consciously performing for you. He's unconsciously revealing his emotional priority in that moment. Your presence aligns his actions. That's powerful. That's love. Stoic, speaking before his brain can even catch up. Maybe you notice small things. He leans in a fraction more. His laughter changes when you laugh. His hands gesture with more deliberation. His breathing steadies. Maybe even his silence becomes meaningful. He stops talking just to listen. It's not about grand statements. It's about a new rhythm, a new beat. When you're there, his world shifts. It's internal soundtrack. Can you feel it? If you tune into your emotional radar the moment you walk into the room and he turns his head toward you, he's already acknowledging your presence and he doesn't pull away. He leans in, psychologically speaking, to you with his whole self, not just his words. Consider this. Behavioral shifts often precede feelings. You lean towards someone before you know you love them. He's experimented with that impulse quietly when he's around you. That's living through stoicism, understanding feelings through presence first, then language later. He trusts his body's inclination to reveal what his mind is still evaluating. Here's a scenario. You've had a tough day. And you slump into your sofa. He's beside you, not offering advice or commentary. Instead, he slides closer, grabs a throw blanket, and wraps it around you, wordless. Care is incredible. That behavior tells you he's present, that he feels attuned. That's not necessity, that's emotional resonance, that's authenticity revealing itself. And he doesn't stop there. He's more mindful of his personal habits, like silencing his phone, not because he's hiding something, but because he wants your space to feel undisturbed. He tunes into the moment you're sharing. It's subtle, but the effect is deep. He's calibrating his entire being to your shared environment. That's not performance. That's ownership of personal resonance with you. That's love. Stoic in action and Stoic philosophy, there's emphasis on living according to nature and reason. Here, nature and reason coalesce in behavioral resonance. If he cares and he's afraid to admit it, his body will lead. And that's exactly what's happening. The tremor of his vulnerability dissolves the public persona, leaving a man present with you. That's a powerful translation of internal emotional commitment into lived action. So here's your task, not to coax words, but to reflect his presence. Lean in, center yourself. Take his behavioral shift as a gift. Say nothing, feel it. Let your presence match his. Let him sense that his authenticity didn't go unnoticed when you breathe. Breathe with him, when you stillness, still with him. That synchronized presence invites him to trust your shared space more and maybe speak from the same depth. Think of it like dancing. He's offering you his hidden rhythm. You don't need to ask, just join. Lean your energy into his strength. grows in shared silence even more than in uttered I love yous. When actions align, words eventually follow. And when they do, they carry weight because the ground has already shifted underneath them. Another layer, you might realize he's shifting, not just physically, but temperamentally, maybe. He's reserved in groups, but open with you. Maybe he jokes more freely around you, like a man let out of his constraints. That dichotomy isn't random. It shows he trusts you. It means he's holding fewer guards for someone ashamed or fearful of his own feelings. That's progress. He's become himself with you. Now, some might interpret this as mere convenience, but emotional lie detectors don't work through convenience. They work through contrast. It's easier to care in private, but he's caring nonetheless. He's revealing emotional bandwidth where no one is watching. That tells you his feelings aren't for showed. There for you first is that love. Maybe he doesn't say it. Maybe he doesn't realize it. But when behavior morphs around you, when nuances emerge, it's because his internal architecture is shifting. That's love. Stoic, a language of permanence built through intention, not dramatics. There's power in noticing when you catch these behavioral inflections, reflect them back in silent acknowledgement, a shift in your posture, extra attention from you, a connecting gaze. Not because you want to manipulate, but because you're rooted in Stoic regard, honoring presence, authenticity, compassion. That confirmation allows his inner shift to deepen. He can unfold more, reveal more. The intimacy compounds. Be mindful. There's also the risk of misinterpretation if behavior shifts due to stress or fatigue, or if expectations become demands. You risk overreading. That's why awareness matters. Can you observe without assumption? Can you allow the behavior to speak for itself? Can you ground it with presence instead of explanation? If so, you're amplifying authenticity, and he senses agency in your response. Part of the Stoic way is this: we don't expect someone else to heal our emotions. We don't demand words. We cradle authenticity. So when he changes around you, when his energy aligns with yours, respected, no rush, no questioning, just presence. Because presence itself is the foundation of emotional courage. A modern Stoic's truest practice. Over time, pattern, behavioral synchronization deepens trust. It bleeds into conversation, creating safe space for words to emerge. Sometimes a man will say, "I love how safe I feel with you," instead of, "I love you." That's love Stoic vocabulary. Genuine, intentional, grounded in what's already happening, not what's supposed to happen. So let's recap this final signal. Observe how he is when you're near the pace. He takes the posture. He holds the attention he gives. Pay attention to how that differs from when you're not there. Feel the distinction. That's the final clue in this sixfold language of silent devotion. It's not fireworks, it's resonance. Not spectacle, but substance. Not declarations, but dedication. When he shifts, you don't need to call it out. You simply need to honor it. Allow that authenticity to resonate across your shared emotional space. That acknowledgement taken deeply can break centuries of masculine fear around verbal vulnerability. And suddenly emotional honesty becomes possible, not because words are demanded, but because they feel necessary. If you felt this transformation, like you're dancing together because his steps changed, know this: you're already speaking love. Stoic at a frequency he can hear, the rest is timing. If this last insight landed for you, if you've seen his behavior shift in your presence in ways that made you feel recognized, go ahead, like in comment number 1, and subscribe to. Keep exploring the silent Stoic love language that writes its narrative through acts, not announcements. Thanks for watching. Here's to presence, depth, and slow burning connection after exploring the 6 subtle signs that reveal a man's hidden love through lingering eyes, remembered details, unwavering presence, quiet jealousy, future visions, and behavioral closeness. You might wonder, what does it all add up to? Is it enough? Can silent devotion ever speak the whole truth? Let's dive deeper. Hold space for reflection and reveal what this layered, slow burn love truly means for you, for him, and for every soul navigating emotional courage from the Stoic lens. Love isn't a flashy emotion. It's a disciplined alignment between thoughts, intentions, and actions in each of the signs we've discussed. We witnessed this alignment at work. His heart felt something profound. Fear held him back. And yet, his body, mind, and soul found ways to express it. When he looks at you, he's acknowledging more than attraction. He's acknowledging vulnerability. When he shows up, he's saying you're worth the risk. When he remembers, he's keeping your life in his internal map. When he includes you in tomorrow, he's building trust with invisible bricks. When his behavior shifts, he's welcoming you into his authentic space. What this reveals is powerful love doesn't always need unraveling. Sometimes it needs recognition. Recognition isn't recognition. Recognition isn't recognition. Recognition isn't recognition. Isn't it? Admitting something lacking. It's honoring something already given. Think of these 6 signs like beams of light refracted through a prism, each one a color, revealing a facet of care that words alone don't capture. What emerges is a silent masterpiece of emotional maturity. Now consider what happens when these signs exist in the same relationship. Each one magnifies the next, weaving a tapestry of shared trust, authenticity, and emotional safety. When gestures reinforce presence, presence reinforces memory, memory reinforces vision, vision reinforces behavior, the spiral deepens. What begins in subtlety can evolve into emotional intimacy, a form of loyalty deeper than a verbal contract. The journey toward that depth requires trust on both sides. He's risking exposure, and you're risking the temptation to demand words, clarity, or guarantees here. Stoicism serves both of you. It teaches him to honor indicators before declarations. It teaches you to receive what he's given quietly, steadily, without erasing its value by insisting on labels it's not yet ready to wear. In embracing this dynamic, you're not being patient as a way of avoiding disappointment. You're demonstrating respect for emotional process, respect for the unique rhythm this relationship has. You're trusting the emergence more than the announcement. That's not emotional exhaustion, that's emotional mindfulness. We often expect love to shout its presence. We demand its arrival in loud confessions or public affirmations, but the most resilient kind of love sings in whispers. It emerges in small choices repeated over time. It's visible in quiet dwellings of care. And if we listen with calibrated hearts, we can discern its notes even when the volume is low. Yet some of you may wonder, isn't silence empty? Without words, maybe, but silence isn't neutral in this context. Silence is dynamic space. It gives room for gentleness to grow. It allows authenticity to mature. It delays labels until love has substance. It avoids theater in favor of truth. It cultivates emotional endurance. Imagine a day when he finally speaks. Perhaps he looks at you and says, I wanted to say something for a long time. Or, I don't know how to say it well, but I want you to know it may not unfold perfectly, but because you've been experiencing his care, you've already recognized it. His words won't feel awkward. They'll feel congruent. They'll resonate because they'll confirm what you already know. That's the beauty of love, Stoic. When it finally speaks, it speaks with integrity. In the meantime, how do you live in this space? Here are a few Stoic-minded practices to embody trust, witness without rewriting, observe his caring acts without demanding more. Let silence hold them. Allow them to speak. Anchor and gratitude when he shows up. Remember it. When he remembers you, acknowledge it. Let gratitude ripple through your regard, reflect presence. If his behavior aligns with yours, meet it. You don't need to pump words. A shared quiet moment is presence enough. Guard against impatience when fear nudges you to request confession. Pause, breathe, let love breathe in its own time. Cultivate your own center. Your worth isn't tied to verbal affirmation. Honor yourself remain emotionally centered regardless of his fear. Invite vulnerability, express what you feel softly, gently, with composure that signals safety and invites him to follow. When you apply these practices, something remarkable happens. Love stops feeling like a question. It becomes a felt reality. He's drawn closer not by pressure, but by authenticity. You're drawn closer not by speech, but by emotional alignment. The rhythm you co-create becomes both powerful and resistant to crisis because it's built on mutual resilience. At the same time, remember, Stoic love doesn't guarantee perfect timing. Some men remain silent. Some never fully bridge fear, and that's not your failure. It's their journey. If you reach a point where silence holds you back instead of carrying you forward, it's okay to reassess. Emotional courage is not sacrifice, it's agency. You deserve reciprocity, but recognizing it, supporting it, giving it space. Those are entirely your power to offer. If all 6 signs are present, you're already in a quiet yet committed connectivity that merits honor, if only a few appear. They may signal the deeper potential. Each sign opens a window together. They form a door. Your wisdom, stirred by Stoic reflection, will help you decide when stepping toward that door is right. And when waiting vigilantly is wise. Let's revisit those 6 signs briefly through new eyes. Eyes, the unspoken longing shielded by vulnerability. Memory, emotional, tuning, breadcrumbs of devotion. Presence, courage in action, loyalty in crisis. Jealousy, emotional alarm, guardian of connection. Future, silent inclusion, blueprinting. Tomorrow, behavior alignment. Of self-invitation to authenticity, each hinge builds toward one thing. Genuine closeness without coercion. That is a rare gift that is love. Stoic realized joy. You're watching as a YouTube video or reading quietly, own its relevance to your life. No matter where you are, what you've experienced, or what you believe about love, what we've outlined here forms an emotional truth. It's a love that travels beneath the surface, latent, patient, potent. It's not emptiness, it's depth. Not delay, it's shape. Not absence, it's emergence. Remember, silence is not void. Silence can hold movement. Silence can hold hope. Silence can hold the beginning of something greater. It just needs the right witness. May this journey guide your heart to recognize subtle devotion. May it give you the clarity to distinguish between fear and absence. May it strengthen your trust in what you feel and the patience to nurture what's being nurtured even when you don't yet hear it said. Love doesn't always scream. Sometimes it whispers. And when we learn to listen not to what's spoken, but to what unfolds, we discover a realm of emotional intimacy written in actions, gestures, glances, and presence. That's love, that's stoicism in relationship. And that's where true transformation begins. Thank you for journeying to this point. Your days ahead may be quieter, but they can be far more real. Let's get real for a second. How many times have you been in a situation where your gut whispered something's not right, but your heart overruled it? You thought it was love. You thought it was timing. Told yourself he's just busy. He's been hurt before. He needs space. But deep down, there was that voice, that pull in your chest that said, you're giving more than you're getting. Let's not sugarcoat this. You were being used. And maybe you didn't want to admit it. Not because you're naive, not because you're weak, but because you're hopeful. Because you believed in the potential. When we believe in someone's potential more than their actions, we start abandoning our own worth. That's the problem. We confuse attention with intention, words with commitment, and moments of affection with true investment. And that confusion isn't just painful, it's dangerous. It chips away your self-worth. It keeps you stuck in a cycle of emotional starvation, constantly waiting, constantly giving, and slowly forgetting what it's like to be truly seen. Let me ask you this. How often did you tell yourself, maybe I'm asking for too much? How many times did you shrink your needs to fit into his limited capacity to give? How long did you hold on hoping he'd finally see your worth, even as he overlooked it again and again? Now here's the dimension of this issue. This isn't just about one guy. This is about a pattern that shows up when you don't fully recognize your value. It's a pattern many strong, smart, emotionally generous women fall into. And the worst part, when you're in the middle of it, it feels normal. Like love is supposed to be this confusing, this uncertain, this imbalanced. But it's not. You see, Stoicism teaches us to look at reality clearly, not emotionally, not hopefully, but truthfully. And that's what we're doing here today. No more illusions. No more excuses. This video is your mirror, raw, clear, and necessary. We're going to break down 6 brutal but honest signs that he was using you. Not just to hurt, but to liberate. Because once you see these patterns for what they are, you can never unsee them again. That's the power of truth. It might sting, but it also sets you free. And if you stick with me until the end, I'm going to ask you one question that could shift your entire mindset when it comes to dating. A question based in stoicism, personal power, and deep emotional freedom. This isn't about blame. This is about clarity. It's about becoming untouchable to the kind of men who take without giving. Because love stoic isn't just about love. It's about inner strength. It's about showing up with standards, boundaries, and the unshakable belief that your heart is not a place for someone to rest when they're bored, but a kingdom they must earn the right to enter. So are you ready to see the signs you've been avoiding? Let's begin. 1, he only reached out when it was convenient for him. Let's take a hard look at something that many women experience, but few admit out loud. The one-sided dynamic, where a man seems to appear in your life only when it benefits him. Have you ever noticed how his messages come through when he's bored, when he needs company, or when he feels like talking, but goes silent when you need comfort, connection, or consistency? If you're nodding your head, then you've likely been caught in the emotional trap of convenience. Masquerading as connection. It starts off innocent enough. He's charming, maybe even a little aloof in a way that feels intriguing. He sends you a flirty message at night. You smile. Your heart skips a beat. It feels special. Maybe it even feels rare. But here's the question. Where is he the next morning or the next time you need him to show up for something that matters to you? Stoicism teaches us to view relationships without emotional distortion, to separate what feels good from what is good. So let's strip the moment of chemistry and look at the pattern. If the only time he initiates contact is when it's beneficial to him, when he's lonely, when he's looking for validation, or when every other plan falls through, that's not connection. That's consumption. You are not a person in his world. You are a pause in his day. And when you accept that rhythm, even subconsciously, you begin to train yourself to live for crumbs. You wait for him to call. You tell yourself, he's probably just busy. You make excuses. Maybe he's just not good at texting. Or maybe he's scared to get close. But behind every excuse is a truth you're too afraid to sit with. You are not a priority in his life. And the moment you feel the need to explain away someone's absence is the exact moment you should start questioning their presence. Think about this. If someone only knocks on your door when they want something and never when you need support, you call that a friend. Would you call that loyalty? Then why do we call it love when it comes wrapped in romantic attraction? The truth is, we often fall in love with potential, not reality. We cling to the version of someone we created in our minds while ignoring the version that shows up inconsistently. And when we do that, we sacrifice self-respect for fantasy. Here's where Stoicism comes in again. The concept of self-sufficiency. The Stoics believe that the only thing we truly control is ourselves, our responses, our judgments, our standards. So when a man only reaches out to you on his time and you still adjust your entire emotional landscape to accommodate him, you're not being loyal, you're being used. Not maliciously, maybe, but used nonetheless, because let's be real, if he wanted to be there, he would be. You've heard that phrase, right? But have you really felt what it means? It's not just about availability, it's about willingness. A man who wants you in his life will make sure you know it. Not through grand declarations, but through consistent presence. He won't disappear after deep conversations. He won't pop in and out like a ghost with a good smile. He will reach out on your bad days, not just when his mood dips. And here's what most women don't realize. When you constantly respond to those, hey, you up, or I miss you texts that come only when it suits him, you're teaching him that you are always available. But he doesn't have to be. You're reinforcing the cycle. Why should he change when every time he tosses the emotional bait, you bite? It's not that you're weak, it's that you're wired to connect. But connection without reciprocity is exploitation. And when you start calling those crumbs a meal, You starve yourself of what you truly need: consistency, emotional safety, and mutual effort. Ask yourself this: how many times did you initiate the text? How often did you wait for his name to light up your screen, only to feel a wave of disappointment when it didn't? How many nights did you stay up hoping, just hoping, that he would reach out first? That he'd finally show you that you matter unprovoked? And when he finally did, hours, days, even weeks later, did you feel relieved? Did you take it as a sign he still cared? Or did you ignore the pit in your stomach that whispered, he only calls when he's lonely? That whisper, that's your wisdom. That's your love stoic voice, trying to be heard through all the emotional noise. And it's time to stop silencing her. Because here's the brutal truth. When someone truly values you, they don't just contact you when it's easy for them. They show up when it matters. They ask how you're doing. They notice when you're off. They don't disappear after getting what they want. Their communication isn't reactive. It's intentional. So if you're always the one waiting, always the one wondering, always the one hoping, that's not love. That's limbo. You are not a layover on his emotional journey. You are a destination, but only for someone who knows how to arrive, unpack, and stay. The worst part, many women mistake that rush of dopamine, the feeling of being chosen after long silence, as a sign of real affection. But it's not affection. It's emotional gambling. One day he calls, the next he vanishes, and you never know which version you'll get. That unpredictability doesn't make him deep or mysterious. It makes him emotionally unavailable. And that confusion you feel, it's not love. It's chaos. Controlled chaos that he benefits from. Because while you're questioning why he's hot and cold, he's living his life unbothered, unaffected, and unaccountable. Stoicism demands that we confront reality, not cushion it. And reality is this: if he only shows up when it serves him, he's not in a relationship with you. He's in a relationship with your availability. That's a hard pill to swallow, but necessary. Because once you see it clearly, you start moving differently. You stop chasing, you stop excusing, you stop begging crumbs from someone who eats full meals elsewhere. Instead, you begin to demand what the real you has always deserved: consistency, effort, and emotional maturity. And the moment you start doing that, he either rises to meet you or reveals what was always true. He never planned to. Either way, you win. That's the Stoic way. Not cold, not bitter, but clear, free, anchored. You no longer become reactive to his inconsistency. You become responsive to your own standards. You don't wait for his text. You notice its absence, and you choose yourself again and again until the only energy in your life is energy that matches yours. So the next time you catch yourself waiting for that hey message, stop. Ask yourself, does he ever reach out because he cares about me or just when he needs something? Am I a partner or a placeholder? Am I truly being valued or just being used gently? When you start asking the hard questions, the truth stops hurting and starts healing. That's the work. That's the mindset. That's love stoic. 2, his actions never matched his words. Let's cut to the core of something that breaks more hearts than betrayal. It's the slow emotional erosion that happens when a man says all the right things but fails to back them up with real consistent action. And the worst part, it's not always obvious at first. In fact, it usually starts off beautifully. He tells you you're special. He says he's never felt this way before. He looks you in the eyes and says he's serious about you, that he wants to build something real. You believe him. Why wouldn't you? We're wired to trust language, to trust warmth. And when a man speaks to the part of you that longs to be chosen, to be seen, to be kept, it's intoxicating. But then time passes and you start to notice the cracks. He says you matter, but he cancels plans last minute. He says you're the most important person in his life, but he disappears for days. He tells you he's working on himself, but you see no growth, no follow-through, just empty phrases repeated like lullabies to keep you emotionally asleep. You start justifying it, of course. You say he means well. You think he's just going through a hard time. You tell your friends he's trying, I can tell. But deep down, your soul is tired. Not because of what he says, but because of what he fails to do. This is the part where Stoicism saves you. Because Stoicism tells us not to judge a person by their intentions, but by their actions. Epictetus said, don't explain your philosophy, embody it. The same goes for love. Don't explain his love. Don't justify it. Don't translate his sweet words into your own hopeful language. Let his actions speak. And if they're silent, stop giving them a voice. Because here's the truth. Ache. A man who wants to be with you will not need reminders. He won't forget dates. He won't ignore messages. He won't leave you confused. He won't say one thing and do another. Love is not confusing when it's real. It is consistent. It is dependable. And yes, it is sometimes imperfect. But even in its imperfection, it shows up. It shows up. So if he tells you he'll change and nothing changes, that's your answer. If he promises you commitment but never brings clarity, that's your answer. If he apologizes for hurting you and continues to do it, that's your answer. The man you're in love with might not be lying to you, but he is failing you. And that failure, when repeated over and over again, creates a reality that's far more damaging than any lie. It creates self-doubt. It makes you think you're asking for too much. It makes you think you're difficult, too emotional, too impatient. It turns your standards into a burden you carry instead of boundaries you honor. Ask yourself right now, have I ever felt like I had to convince him to care, to stay, to try? Have I ever felt like his words painted a version of us that only existed in my imagination? And if so, why did I stay? Most of us stay because we believe in potential. But Stoicism reminds us that potential is nothing without practice. A man can have all the right intentions and still hurt you deeply if he never acts on them. The Stoic path is not to cling to what could be, but to accept what is. What is he showing you? What is he doing when it really counts? What is the story his patterns are telling, regardless of what his mouth is saying? There's no honor in waiting for someone to become the partner they keep promising to be. There's no strength in tolerating inconsistency just because the good moments feel like magic. That magic means nothing if it's surrounded by pain, by absence, by broken trust. The universe isn't testing you. He isn't a puzzle you have to solve. His actions already told you the truth. You're just afraid to believe it. Why? Because believing it means facing the loss. It means walking away from the version of love you've been desperately clinging to. It means grieving the future you imagine. But Stoicism tells us that true peace only comes from aligning with reality, not fantasy. From embracing discomfort in the short term to avoid devastation in the long term. When someone's actions don't align with their words, it's not your job to bridge the gap. It's your responsibility to protect your peace. You cannot build trust with promises. You cannot build intimacy with potential. You cannot build a future with someone whose present is full of contradictions. And listen, I get it. You think he means well? He just doesn't know how to show it. But let me ask you this. If you were the one failing to follow through, would he be this understanding? Would he wait for you? Would he hold space for your broken promises? Or would he move on, calling you inconsistent or too much work? You see, women are trained to carry the emotional labor of relationships to fix, to nurture, to believe. But Stoicism is not about belief. It's about observation. It's about detachment from illusions. It's about calling things what they are, no matter how much you wish they were different. And what this is someone who says he cares but doesn't care enough to follow through. You don't need to hear, I love you every day. You need to feel loved in the moments that matter. You don't need constant reassurance. You need reliable presence. You don't need a poetic man. You need a consistent one. You need someone who doesn't just show up when it's easy, but when it's hard. Who doesn't just say, I'll try, but actually tries again and again, even when life gets messy. Love Stoic is about stepping into that mindset. It's about asking hard questions like, am I in love with his actions or just his words? If I said nothing, if I stopped chasing, would anything even change? Am I building something with a partner or patching up a one-sided fantasy on my own? You need to hear this. Your heart is worthy of alignment. You deserve to wake up and feel secure, not analyze his every move. You deserve to know where you stand, not question it constantly. You deserve someone whose actions whisper and scream, I choose you. Every day without reminders, without ultimatums, without emotional gymnastics. When a man's actions match his words, peace follows. When they don't, chaos takes root and your body knows it. You can feel it in your stomach, in your sleep, in your silence. The stress, the confusion, the ache of not knowing if he's real or just really good with words. But now you see, now you're awake. And once you're awake, you can never go back. That's the gift of clarity. That's the power of walking away. Not bitterly, but bravely. You don't need closure. You need alignment. And once you step into alignment with your worth, you attract people who don't just speak love, they live it. That's the way of Stoicism. That's the love Stoic life. And if you felt something shift in you while watching this, if you recognized yourself in these words, then let this be your moment. Like this video and drop a comment saying number 1 if this hit home for you. And if you're ready to keep stepping into clarity, consistency, and emotional power, subscribe to the channel because this isn't just relationship advice. This is a mindset. This is love Stoic. 3. He avoided defining the relationship. Let's talk about one of the most emotionally disorienting experiences a woman can have. Being in something that feels like a relationship, acts like a relationship, but somehow isn't a relationship. You share intimate moments. You talk for hours. You're emotionally invested, physically connected, maybe even spending most of your week thinking about him or with him. And yet, the second you try to define it to clarify what you're building together, he gets uncomfortable, defensive. Maybe he says, let's not label it, or let's see where it goes, or I'm not ready to commit. And you, with your understanding heart and your hope that things just need a little more time, you accept it. You tell yourself that real love doesn't need labels, that pushing him might make him run, that he just needs to feel safe. But let's be radically honest. That is not partnership. That is postponement. Postponement of clarity, of boundaries, of your emotional security. And that uncertainty, it's not romantic, it's not mysterious, it's not a phase, it's a tactic, conscious or not, to keep you emotionally available without him having to be fully accountable. And this is where stoicism becomes your armor. Because the stoic doesn't beg for titles. She observes the truth. She notices the silence behind the excuses, the resistance behind the charm, the ambiguity behind every vague statement about seeing where things go. Ask yourself this. Why would someone who truly cares about you hesitate to define what you are? Why would a man who values your presence in his life not want to solidify it, protect it, build on it? The truth is often brutal but freeing. People avoid commitment when they want to keep their options open, when they enjoy the benefits of closeness without the responsibility of it, when they fear being held accountable for the space they take up in your life. And every time you let that slide, every time you convince yourself that love should be label-free and fluid and undefined, you are betraying your own need for certainty and masking it as evolved understanding. But here's the paradox. Real freedom in a relationship comes not from avoiding labels, but from agreeing on the same reality. Love without clarity is not freedom. It's limbo. And living in limbo is a slow form of self-abandonment. You start questioning yourself. Am I being too needy? Shouldn't I just enjoy the moment? Maybe if I just wait a little longer, he'll be ready. But while you wait, he lives his life. He benefits from your loyalty, your care, your presence, your energy, while you're stuck in a cycle of emotional ambiguity. 1 foot in, 1 foot out. And when someone's not fully in, that means they're also not fully invested. A man who is serious about you wants to name it. Not because he loves labels, but because he knows that clarity is respect, that naming something is honoring it, that defining it is how you protect it. Ambiguity is a breeding ground for insecurity, for misaligned expectations, for unspoken resentment. It's not noble to stay silent about what you want. It's not cool girl behavior to float in his world undefined, just hoping one day he'll wake up and decide that you're the one. That's not romance. That's passivity. And passivity is the enemy of conscious love. You deserve to know where you stand. You deserve to be able to say, this is what I want. Do you want it too? Without being made to feel like you're pushing or ruining something. A man who is aligned with you, who sees your value, won't run from that conversation. He'll welcome it. Because for someone who is ready, definition isn't pressure, it's peace. And if the conversation about commitment sends him into a spiral of avoidance or vague responses, that tells you everything you need to know. You are not asking too much. You are just asking the wrong person. Stoicism teaches us to face what is not what we wish it was. You might wish he was just taking his time, but if his actions suggest he's keeping the door open for better options, or that he enjoys the access without the commitment, then believing otherwise is self-deception, and there is no peace in pretending. The most painful moments are not when someone tells you they don't want to commit. It's when they refuse to say it and keep you dangling in emotional purgatory, making you question your worth every time you dare to ask for more. But your worth is not up for debate, and it doesn't depend on his readiness. A man's uncertainty about you is not a reflection of your desirability. It's a reflection of his inability to match what you're offering. So if you find yourself constantly wondering what you are to him, if you're tiptoeing around the DTR, define the relationship conversation. If you feel like bringing it up might scare him off, then he's already halfway out the door. Undo man who wants you in his life doesn't fear the label. He uses it as a container to build trust, commitment, and mutual growth. And if he's unwilling to give you clarity, then your job is not to convince him. Your job is to walk away. Not as punishment, not as a test, but as a choice to stop investing in what is undefined, unclear, and unfair to your emotional needs. This isn't about ultimatums. It's about alignment. The Stoic woman doesn't demand love. She creates space where only aligned love can enter. And the moment you choose clarity over connection is the moment you step into your power. Because when you stop chasing definition from someone who's unwilling to give it, you become available for someone who would never not define you as his. That is your standard. That is your truth. And that is the way of love, stoic. Not desperation. Not waiting, but walking. Eyes open, heart steady, standards unshaken. Because you no longer ask, why won't he define us? Instead, you ask, why would I stay where I'm not clearly chosen? And once you start asking that question, the answers you've been avoiding will finally become too loud to ignore. For you were always the one putting in the effort. Let's get painfully honest for a moment. Have you ever looked around in your relationship and realized that you were the only one keeping it alive? That you were the one initiating every text, planning every date, managing every emotional conflict, and holding all the weight of making it work? If so, then you know the quiet exhaustion of constantly showing up for someone who barely lifts a finger. You convince yourself it's just a phase, that he's stressed, that he's just not as expressive, but deep down you feel it. The imbalance, the emotional one-sidedness, the slow erosion of your joy every time you try to pull both your weight and his. The stoic woman doesn't deny what is. She stares it straight in the face and calls it by name. And what this is not love. It's emotional labor disguised as connection. It's effort disguised as loyalty. And most of all, it's pain disguised as hope. Ask yourself, how many times did you wait for him to initiate a plan and then eventually did it yourself? Because you couldn't bear the silence anymore. How often did you suppress your own needs so you wouldn't seem too much or too emotional? How often did you rehearse conversations in your head just to make sure you wouldn't scare him off by simply expressing what you wanted? And when you finally spoke your truth, how often did you get met with defensiveness, avoidance, or worse, gaslighting? That kind of relationship doesn't just wear down your heart, it drains your identity. You start believing that maybe this is what modern love looks like, that maybe women are just naturally more nurturing, that maybe relationships are supposed to be hard. But no, that's a narrative designed to keep you small. Love is effort, yes, but love is mutual effort. Anything less is emotional charity. And charity is not the foundation for commitment. It's the foundation for burnout. Stoicism reminds us that the only thing we can control is our own mind and actions. And that clinging to results we can't force is a fast road to disappointment. You cannot force someone to care. You cannot beg someone to rise to your level. And when you spend months or years giving more than you're receiving, you're not building a relationship. You're slowly dissolving your self-worth. There is no nobility in carrying a connection on your back. There is no romance in constantly compensating for his emotional laziness. The truth is, a man who wants you meets you. Not sometimes, not when it's convenient, but consistently. A man who values you doesn't just appreciate your effort. He matches it because he wants to. Because that's what real presence looks like. So if you found yourself managing everything from the check-ins to the conflict resolution to the intimacy scheduling to the emotional support, you're not in a relationship. You're in an emotional transaction where the return is crumbs. And crumbs aren't enough when your soul is hungry for real connection. Consider this. Every time you overlook the imbalance, every time you tell yourself, at least he's trying after doing 10% of the work you do daily, you send a message, not just to him, but to yourself. You tell yourself that your needs are negotiable, that your time doesn't deserve reciprocation, that your energy can be drained indefinitely without ever needing to be replenished. And that over time creates resentment. Deep, quiet, bitter resentment. The kind that sits in your chest and makes you cry without knowing exactly why. The kind that turns your love into labor. The kind that transforms your joy into a checklist of responsibilities you didn't sign up for. But here's the radical shift that Stoicism offers. When you see the imbalance clearly, you stop trying to fix him and start rebalancing you. You stop trying to earn your place in someone's life and instead ask whether they've earned a place in yours. You stop asking, why isn't he doing more, and start asking, why am I tolerating less? And the moment you ask that question honestly, you become unstoppable. You reclaim your time, your energy, your emotional clarity. You stop seeing your worth as tied to how much you can give and start recognizing that real worth is revealed by what you require. And here's something most people won't tell you. The more effort you put into the wrong person, the less effort you have for the right one. Every ounce of energy you pour into a man who is emotionally passive is energy that could have gone into self-growth healing. Building a life so vibrant and full that it naturally filters out people who can't meet you there. Love Stoic isn't about doing less, it's about requiring more. Not more stuff, not more drama, more presence, more alignment, more emotional maturity. You shouldn't have to beg for phone calls. You shouldn't be the only one initiating important conversations. You shouldn't have to chase intimacy. If you have to carry a man just to feel close to him, he's not your partner. He's your project. And a stoic woman doesn't date projects. She builds a life. She honors her standards. She invites only those who show up with open hands and steady feet. So think back to your own experience. How often did you cover for his inconsistency with your consistency? How often did you make excuses for his lack of planning, communication, or emotional presence? And now ask, where could you be today if all that effort had been redirected inward? What would your life look like if that same energy had been invested into your own expansion, your goals, your peace, your passion? This is not a guilt trip. This is a wake-up call. And if your heart is pounding right now, if something inside you is rising to the surface, then good. That's the part of you that's been waiting to be heard. That's your love stoic voice saying enough caring, enough fixing, enough accepting the bare minimum from a man who should have been showing up without being begged. Because love, real, grounded, mature love, doesn't make you tired. It makes you stronger. It restores you. It meets you halfway or not at all. So if you're ready to stop carrying dead weight and start attracting aligned connection, let this moment be your shift. If this message speaks to something real inside you, don't let it fade. Hit that like button right now and comment number 1 below if you felt this in your bones. And if you're ready to keep walking the path of emotional clarity, fierce self-worth, and stoic love, go ahead and subscribe. This is more than advice. This is a movement. This is love. Stoic 5. He kept you out of his real life. One of the most subtle yet damaging ways a man reveals his lack of genuine investment is by keeping you just outside the circle of his real life. Close enough to feel wanted, but far enough to remain excluded. And the most dangerous part, it doesn't always look like rejection. In fact, it often disguises itself as privacy, as mystery, as a need for space. You tell yourself, he's just not ready. You rationalize that maybe he's been burned in the past. You think he's just not a sharer, and yet something doesn't feel right. You've been seeing each other for weeks, maybe months, but you haven't met a single one of his close friends. He talks vaguely about work, but never brings you into his world. His phone is always face down. His social media presence, sparse or carefully curated. And anytime you try to dig deeper, even gently, he finds a way to pivot the conversation or make you feel like you're overreaching. That feeling you get in your gut, that sense of being hidden, that's not paranoia. That's your intuition screaming the truth. He is withholding access, and withholding access is withholding respect. Let's not soften it. Let's not dress it up. Let's call it what it is, a deliberate distancing strategy meant to keep you emotionally hooked without giving you real roots. And Stoicism teaches us not to look away from the uncomfortable. It teaches us to stare straight into the parts of life that confuse us, hurt us, and tempt us to doubt ourselves, and to see them for what they are, not what we want them to be. So look at it now. Why hasn't he introduced you to his people? Why do you still feel like an outsider in the one relationship where you should feel the most seen? Why do you know about his surface-level routines but nothing about the emotional history that shaped him? People don't hide what they're proud of. And if you're being kept at a distance, it's not because he's protecting you. It's because he's protecting himself. Protecting his freedom, protecting the illusion of control, protecting the other lives he might still be entertaining or the emotional availability he's unwilling to fully offer. A man who truly wants you in his life doesn't just say so. He integrates you. You show up in his conversations. He tells stories with your name in them. He includes you in his routine, shares the details of his past, invites you into his future. He doesn't panic when you ask about meeting his friends. He's excited to show you off. And if you're not getting that, you need to stop filling in the blanks with fantasy. You need to stop making excuses for the fact that you know more about his favorite movies than his real-life struggles. And I get it. You think maybe he's just slow to open up. Maybe you've seen glimpses of vulnerability and told yourself, that means the floodgates are coming. But how long will you wait? How many more half answers and polite deflections will you tolerate before you finally admit that the reason you feel like a stranger is because he's keeping you a stranger? We all crave intimacy. But without transparency, there is no intimacy, only illusion, only projection. And that illusion becomes costly because while you're waiting for more, adjusting your expectations, managing your emotional hunger, he's never once sat with the discomfort of being truly seen by you. You're the one who is shared deeply. You're the one who has opened your heart. You've given him access to your fears, your dreams, your past. And what has he given you in return? Bits and pieces, vague outlines, emotionally edited stories designed to keep you close without ever making you a real part of his world. That kind of withholding, it's not harmless. It builds anxiety. It creates uneven emotional power. It makes you feel like you're constantly guessing, constantly measuring how much is too much to ask, too soon to expect, too personal to want. And in that dynamic, you shrink. You become less of yourself just to stay in something that already made you feel like not enough. And Stoicism demands, we ask, why would you fight to stay in a place that won't let you fully exist? Why would you cling to a man who closes his world the moment you knock on the door? Why would you spend months emotionally investing in someone who can't even mention you to the people closest to him? Because here's the thing. When someone refuses to let you into their real life, they are making a very clear statement, whether they say it out loud or not. That statement is, you are not permanent. And that is a devastating thing to admit. But it's also freeing, because once you see it for what it is, you stop chasing the emotional mirage. You stop trying to impress his friends you'll never meet. You stop bending over backwards to prove that you're worthy of being chosen. You realize that your worth is not waiting behind the gates of his guarded world. It's already within you. And someone who can't recognize that is not a mystery to be solved. He's a boundary to be enforced. Love Stoic is about honoring that boundary. It's about not stepping over yourself just to be accepted. It's about not begging to be let in. Because real love doesn't keep you on the outside. Real love pulls you close slowly if needed, but steadily with intention, with invitation, not secrecy, not resistance. And if you're in something where every question feels like a test, every ask feels like a risk, and every emotional reach feels like a mistake, that's not love. That's a performance. And you were not born to perform for a man's comfort. You were born to connect, to be known, to be seen in your fullness. So ask yourself, am I being loved or am I being hidden? Am I part of his real life or am I just orbiting his convenience? And if your truth is that you've been kept at arm's length for far too long, then your next move is not to prove yourself. Your next move is to step back, not to punish, but to protect, to re-enter your energy, to restore your dignity, and to wait not in passivity, but in power. For someone who doesn't just give you a place in his life, but makes room for you without being asked, that is what you deserve. That is what Love Stoic is about. And the moment you stop accepting exclusion as part of romance is the moment you set a new standard for everyone who comes next. 6. He was too busy when you needed him most. Let's talk about the lie that's been sold to every emotionally generous woman who's ever dared to ask for more. The lie that he was just too busy, that his calendar, his career, his stress, his mental health, his deadlines all somehow justified his consistent emotional absence. Let's strip it down to its truth. Being busy isn't a crime. We all have lives. We all have responsibilities. But the difference between someone who cares and someone who doesn't is this. People make time for what matters. No one is ever too busy to send a message that says, I'm thinking of you. No one is too busy to return a call. No one is so consumed by their world that they can't check in with the person they claim to love, unless they don't really mean it when they say it. You see, Stoicism teaches us to separate illusion from truth. And when a man constantly tells you he's too busy every time you need him, it's not a schedule problem. It's a priority problem. A man who wants to be in your life will find a way to show up. Not perfectly, not always without flaws, but consistently, meaningfully, and in ways that reflect effort. So why did you accept the bare minimum? Why did you convince yourself that he wanted to be there, but life just wouldn't let him? Because it was easier to believe that than to face the more painful truth. That you were not a priority. That he was perfectly capable of showing up, just not for you. That he gave his energy freely to everything else. Work, friends, hobbies, even strangers on the internet. But when you needed him, suddenly there were obstacles. Suddenly there was no time, no space, no emotional bandwidth. You begged for scraps. You rationalized his silence. You twisted your mind into logic loops that went something like, well, he's working so hard, I should be patient. Or he'll come around once things settle down. But things never really settled, did they? Because there's always something, always a reason why this week he can't talk, why next month he'll be more available. And yet you kept showing up, you kept waiting. And in doing so, you trained yourself to expect nothing and celebrate the crumbs he tossed you. A late night call, a quick text days later, a brief apology with no action behind it. And every time he reappeared, it validated your waiting. You felt like you had won something. But here's the hard truth. If his presence is inconsistent,
His love is unreliable, and love without reliability isn't love at all. It's chaos. It's pain. It's uncertainty dressed up as romance. Stoicism demands that we reject false narratives and accept what's real. And what's real is this: a man who wants to be there finds a way. He might not have hours. He might not be perfect, but he shows up. Not when it's easy, not when it's convenient, but especially when it matters most. Think about this. When you were crying, overwhelmed, needing support, where was he when you were dealing with your own stress? Hoping for a voice to ground you. Where was he when you just needed someone to say, "You're not alone"? Where was he? If he was always too busy, too distracted, too unavailable, then what exactly was he available for? Because if he only reached out when he needed something but vanished when you did, then that's not partnership. That's usage. Emotional convenience. And that's the part that stings the most. Realizing that the person you bent over backwards for couldn't even meet you halfway. You lowered your expectations, softened your asks, tried to be understanding, and in doing so, abandoned your own emotional needs. That is not strength. That is sacrifice without reward. That is a silent heartbreak. And you know what's even more painful? The gaslighting. When you finally did bring it up, his absence, his excuses, his emotional withdrawal. He probably told you that you were overreacting, that he's just not good at communication, that you should know how he feels even when he never shows it. And somehow you started to believe that your needs were too much, that you were too sensitive, too demanding. But you weren't. You were simply asking for what every human deserves: presence, care, and mutual investment. You weren't asking for 24/7 access. You were asking for consistency, for reliability, for emotional safety, and none of that is unreasonable. So if he made you feel like that's on him, not you. It's time to stop making excuses for men who disappear the moment they're needed most. Because the truth is, he wasn't busy. He was comfortable. Comfortable knowing you'd still be there when he resurfaced. Comfortable knowing that no matter how many times he failed to show up, you'd still answer when he finally did. That is not love. That is emotional manipulation. Even if it wasn't intentional, love stoic isn't about blaming him. It's about waking up you, because once you see the pattern, you can break the cycle. You can start asking better questions like, why am I always waiting? What am I tolerating in the name of understanding? What would my life look like if I stopped accepting inconsistency as normal? Because it's not normal. It's just familiar. And sometimes the most dangerous thing in the world is something that feels familiar but is deeply unhealthy. So you have a choice now. You can keep waiting for the busy man to become available. You can keep believing that someday when work slows down or life gets easier, he'll start showing up in the way you need. Or you can accept the reality that someone who wants to show up already would have, that someone who sees you clearly makes space for you, that someone who values your presence prioritizes it, even if it's just with small, consistent gestures. Love is not built in grand declarations. It's built in the tiny decisions people make every day. To text back, to listen, to check in, to be there when you're not okay. Those are the moments that create emotional intimacy. And if he can't make those moments happen, then you don't need to stay. You don't need to explain. You don't need to fight for a seat in someone's life who doesn't even know if he wants to set the table. You deserve reciprocity. You deserve someone who isn't too busy when you need them most. You deserve someone who doesn't require a crisis to care. And if you've made it this far in the video, if you've nodded your head, felt seen, or heard your own story echoed back to you, then you already know it. So, honor that truth. Let this be the moment you stop making space for people who don't show up. And if this message pierced your heart in the best way, if it woke something up inside you, then go ahead and hit that like button and drop a number 1 in the comments. Let me know you felt this. And if you're ready to stay on this journey of emotional mastery, truth-telling, and powerful self-respect, then make sure you subscribe right now, because this is just the beginning. This is Love Stoic. Now that you've seen the signs, not just read them, but felt them, the real question isn't, was he using me? You already know the answer. The real question is, what am I going to do with that truth? Now, this isn't about regret. This isn't about shame. It's not about beating yourself up for not seeing it sooner. It's about reclaiming your vision now, because the moment you acknowledge the patterns, the behaviors, the excuses, the quiet heartbreaks you tolerated in silence, that's the moment you start walking back to yourself. You begin the return to your own center, and that in itself is everything. See, a love stoic woman doesn't hold grudges. She holds standards. She doesn't chase validation. She recognizes when her presence has been undervalued and calmly withdraws it. She doesn't seek to punish those who failed to show up, but she no longer allows them to re-enter without matching the energy she brings.
Because the love stoic mindset isn't built on revenge or ego. It's built on clarity, detachment, and deep emotional sovereignty. You are not hard to love. You are not too much. You are not asking for the impossible. You are simply loving someone who didn't know how or didn't care to try to love you in return. That's not your fault. But staying in it once you know the truth, that becomes your choice. And the beauty is you now have the choice. Clarity is a gift. Painful, yes, but it gives you the power to never walk blindly again. You now know the difference between attention and intention, between interest and investment, between momentary desire and lasting respect. You know what it feels like to overextend, to overgive, to wait too long for someone who never planned to stay. And with that knowledge, you don't just protect your future, you protect your peace. So let this be your turning point. Not just a video you watched, but a decision you made. A decision to stop shrinking to fit into someone else's limited love. A decision to stop romanticizing inconsistency. A decision to let go of the man who was always too busy, too vague, too distant, too unavailable, and make space for the one who sees you, chooses you, and shows up fully. Not perfectly, but consistently, lovingly, honestly, because that's what you're worth. That's what you've always been worth. And from this point forward, that's what you never settle for again. This is the beginning of something deeper. A new way of seeing, a new way of loving, a new way of living. This is